All right. Let's do this. I'm not sure I'm going to make it through this.
This show sucked.
It's a good thing we didn't start with this show, Vinny. After that wretched start to this program.
This show...
I'd have totally lost my shit.
Well, I'm prepared to lose it again.
You know what the difference was with this show?
Many, but...
This was memorable shit. Unlike the last 2 months of completely forgettable shit that they've been doing. Right?
Yeah.
What'd they do on Nitro last week?
Flair. Did they do something with Flair at the end?
What'd they do 2 weeks ago?
Probably something else with Flair at the end.
Okay, see? Everyone's already forgotten. Who's going to forget this bullshit?
Well, no one.
No one ever.
That's not good, though. When the show began, I knew what show it was going in, obviously. But as it started and it sunk in, I started to feel like depressed and helpless. Like I was about to watch a death and could do nothing to prevent it. And then by the end of the show, 3 hours later, I was like, good! This company deserved to die. It's a good thing I wish they died sooner.
Wow.
This show was terrible.
I went into this bemused, like, oh man, here we go. I'm going to have fun with this one. I didn't.
No. So.
Let's start with Jimmy Barron. Who was this guy?
Was that the Nitro Party winner?
No, this was a guy, I looked it up on Wikipedia. He was just a guy, an American disc jockey. Did some films. He's the guy that interviewed the guy at the Nitro Party.
So what is the Nitro Party?
Yeah, but not the winner.
I see.
He was the random guy. They go, hey, let's go to Jimmy Barron.
Well, yes.
I'm like, who? They go to a guy who then interviews another fucking guy and his fucking friends.
Were these the least likable Nitro Party winners of all time?
I hated every one of them.
Now, when they celebrated Goldberg going to jail, that's when I turned the corner on him.
I like the random guy in the back just throwing popcorn in the air. Who does that?
If I had been in the Georgia Dome, one of 40,000 people there, I think I would have left during the show so as not to be in the same building with this crew.
Oh, come on. They're just fans who won a contest.
Do not refer to them as winners, please.
I will admit the LWO party looked more fun.
Which is saying something.
Slightly.
What are you talking
At least
about?
there was girls there.
Yeah, there were a couple.
Glacier versus Hugh Morris. They said this is the biggest crowd in Nitro history for this show.
I actually don't think it was. It was close, but here's my question. Like, I know this is low on our list of worries, or our list of worries.
Sure.
Why the fuck did Hugh Morris just shave his head for nothing? You
hasn't
couldn't do a damn match.
He hasn't been around in months.
He just shows up bald for a match with the Glacier.
Why is the Glacier funny? Funnier than just Glacier. Well, Hugh Morris squashed the Glacier.
He did.
There were some shenanigans with Jimmy Hart, and Hugh hit the moonsault on the Glacier and got the pin.
Hey, at least we got one high spot, and it didn't go 20 minutes.
And by the way, Glacier just back to being babyface?
He is?
I guess.
I thought he was a heel here.
I thought it was very obvious he was a heel.
Isn't Hugh Morris a heel?
He's a babyface.
He is? I thought they were both heels.
Fucking cares? It sucked.
I seriously thought they were both heels. Hey, Brian, you know this did not go 20 minutes, and that's true, but do you know what did go 20 minutes? The fucking recap of the Ric Flair thing last week.
Yeah.
Going back to the birth of Ric Flair in Minnesota and chronicling everything that happened since then in real time.
Yes.
Over. This just went on and on and on. We get it. He's in charge now. Whip-de-doo.
They got 3 hours, dude. You'll be begging for this here in about 5 minutes.
At this point, Richard M. Flair, as they called him, he arrives at the building.
Well, first they claim we're going to hear from Hulk Hogan later. He is retired and moving into politics. And then the Horsemen showed up.
20 minutes late, by the way.
Yeah.
Flair's first day on the job.
Fit right in.
Yeah.
So he's got his family there. He's got Reed and David and Charlotte.
Charlotte
is the last remaining active Nitro wrestler.
Like, what, 13 maybe?
I'm not going to lie, all right? I spent like an hour trying to figure out if this was actually Charlotte.
How?
She was 12, Craig.
I was close. I said 13.
She was 5'11".
Yeah.
Like...
Well, she was wearing heels.
I know, but still. I was like...
She was as tall as her dad.
This has to be Megan. Right? But it wasn't.
No, you could tell by her face.
It looked just like her.
I know. I eventually just broke down and realized that's Charlotte.
Yeah. You see,
She was a fucking giant.
she was a tall young lady. It's true. So, Flair begins to speak. He is cutting The most low-key, almost out-of-character promo you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Bischoff had a reign of terror that lasted 5 years, he said. I'm calling Bischoff out.
It ain't over.
No. Threatens to fire him if he doesn't show up. So Eric comes out. Flair says, "You humiliated me in front of my peers like Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. The easy thing to do would be to fire you. But just like you took me out of the main events and put me in the openers, I am putting you to work for Tony Schiavone at the announce desk. And that means you won't be on TV, so I can cut your pay in half."
I just realized you foreshadowed at the beginning of this show what Eric Bischoff did this entire Nitro.
Pouted?
Yeah.
Maybe that's where.
Sat there and took off his headphones.
Maybe that's where I got my.
The difference is Vinny actually adds to the show. Fucking Eric Bischoff, what the hell is he going to add to this fucking show?
Thank you, Brian.
And then, furthermore, Tony Schiavone is so excited
Yeah.
to have Eric Bischoff in the booth.
Yeah, he's his boss.
I'm like, why? And then the entire 3 hours, they're begging for Eric to talk.
Again, why?
I'm like, why? Who gives a fuck? What do you want this fucking geek in the booth for anyway?
So then they showed Bischoff firing Randy Anderson after his cancer treatment in front of his kids. Flair brought Anderson out, rehired him, doubled his salary. He thanks Booker T, DDP, and Schiavone, everyone who celebrated with him last week. Also thanks Randy Savage, knows they've had their, what was the word he said? Never seen eye to eye, whatever he said. But thank you for your contributions last week. And then he's going to book his first match.
Oh my God. If you didn't watch this show, everybody, Ric Flair is going to book himself in his first match coming up at Sold Out. What is that match?
A handicap match. So, okay, it's going to be like all Four Horsemen against Bischoff is what I thought. No. Ric Flair by himself against Kurt Hennig and Barry Windham. That's his idea.
That seems logical.
That's the match he wants.
And his logic is, I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to either kill both of you, or you'll kill me.
That was what he said.
Yeah.
Then,
Seems legit.
awkwardly, up steps fucking David Flair.
It just begins.
It's a good word for David Flair.
Fucking?
Well,
He says, "Dad, I want to be your partner." I apologize. Should I try it again?
Go for it.
yeah, less
Dad,
enthusiasm.
I've been watching your career since I was a kid. I can't do it.
Your energy... is
I
not
can't do it.
It's the nervousness.
He was very nervous.
He had one line, and it was a lot for the young man. He said he'd been watching Rick since he was really young. He wanted to be his partner. Flair says, "You're not ready." Arn
Damn right.
Arn takes the mic and says, "He knows what he's doing."
What?
Yes, I looked around in my living room. I said, "What? How do you know this, Arn?" So Flair says, "Okay." There's David and Rick versus Barry and Kurt.
Now listen, I know that Dean Malenko had an injury. He's on crutches, okay?
Right.
Where's Chris Benoit to step in and be Ric Flair's partner?
He was there.
He's just standing there in a trench coat.
Yeah.
The look on his face when Arn Anderson said that David was ready. Like, even he
Guess
couldn't.
that. Mm-hmm. Mongo was there, too.
This was so stupid.
Mongo kept stepping in front of the camera shot the whole time.
I mean, he's probably more ready than Mongo.
At this point, show was more than 30 minutes old, plus commercials. There had been generously 3 minutes of wrestling in that Hugh Morris match. So it's Booker T versus Emery Hale in match number 2.
Last time Emery Hale was on, we neglected to mention that he was the famous Machine.
He was the Machine that matched the DDP on Thunder.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
He was in the spot.
Oh,
Yes.
with the top rope. And
Yes.
Okay.
So he comes out here, no entrance for Emery Hale, didn't even get a graphic. They fucked up the first thing they did, and Booker T said, "Fuck this," and
Take it
immediately
home.
took it home. Hit his finishes and won.
If only they did that on Raw nowadays.
It was awesome.
So now we're 30-some minutes into the show, and there's been generously 4 minutes of wrestling. Hey, remember that terrible match with Norman Smiley and Chavo Guerrero last week?
Dude.
Take it around the loop.
Dude.
They did it again.
I vowed I would never watch Norman Smiley when he came out with that fucking stick horse.
Chavo.
Either
I'm sorry,
way.
Chavo, either one, but yeah. I watched this. I'm happy I did.
How are you now?
This was so fucking atrocious.
You're rotten. This match was rotten.
They had the most incredible botch spot. It was
Which one?
so incredible.
Which one?
Chavo goes for a quebrada, a lion salt.
Okay.
His feet hit the ropes, and he just slips.
Both of them. Both
And
feet.
ends up sitting on the middle rope, okay? He's just petrified. So what does he do? Like, Norman is expecting a lion salt,
Sure.
okay? If you're Norman, this fucking guy fucked it up. What do we do now?
Kick him in the back.
Chavo just decides, I'm going to slide to the apron, and I'm just going to leap it and get ya. And literally, he did like the Johnny Gargano spear from
Yes.
the apron
Yeah,
inside. Norman has no fucking idea what's going on. He just stands there. Chavo falls on his ass and cradles the guy.
I described it as Chavo fucking up a springboard, a DDT, and a roll-up all at the same time. Now, that was the worst point. It sucked really bad before then, too.
Everything sucked. Everything in this match sucked.
Did you catch Norman doing a key lock on the toe?
Kind of.
I mean, perhaps this may have been an actual hold. I don't know.
I presume-
I'm not a grappler.
Sure.
But it looked dumb.
That was the least of our problems, dude. How about when Chavo's going to do a top rope drop kick, but Norman doesn't turn around?
Yeah.
And so Chavo stands up there for 5 minutes as Norman does his fucking big wiggle. He jumps off and he still fucks it up. This was appalling.
Chavo won with a sunset flip.
And then Smiley
Sunset
beat him
flip
up
finishes on both
afterwards.
shows. Just
Yeah.
realized that. Yeah.
Why didn't Smiley just win?
I don't know.
This was terrible.
I fucking hated this.
This was absolutely terrible. But it was worth watching.
Norman Smiley's a trainer at... it doesn't matter.
Fucking Hugh Morris was in charge of developmental.
Chris Benoit versus Horus.
This wasn't much better.
This was on the low end of Chris Benoit matches.
He did all he could. He did all
really
could
tried.
with Horus.
He tried his hardest. So he hits the diving headbutt, and his head hits the shoulder. I watched this carefully several times because he starts selling his head after hitting this headbutt, and then Horus goes on offense again after taking the headbutt. Was he supposed to move and forgot?
I think so, because even the announcers, they said, I don't think Benoit got all of that.
Yeah. So Benoit says, his mistake, I'm just going to sell it like I missed anyway.
Yeah.
Eventually he won with a crossface.
And the whole... Benoit didn't even get an entrance.
Well, he did not. I always suspect when that happens, there's some careful editing going on. Somebody may have said something uncomfortable.
Okay.
Or Nitro was just stupid and didn't give their star an entrance. That's also possible.
I think that's more likely.
Yeah. The cut backstage.
Oh, this.
Oh my God.
Here we go.
That's what I wrote. Here we go.
You know what's funny?
Actually, I wrote, oh God, here we go.
I remembered the finger poke. I forgot about everything leading up to it.
Oh, I remembered this.
Well, you did write like 5 books about this.
Yes.
Just 5 times.
Over and over until you got it right.
I got an important question here.
Sure.
Can you not pre-tape shit? And if it sucks, do it again.
Well, that would be the point of pre-taping.
You know,
right?
I've said this about stuff too, and you always say, maybe this was the best take.
That is impossible, okay? That's impossible. Goldberg's being arrested, okay?
Yeah.
So, we enter the frame. There's like 5 cops.
I can see the script being written in front of me.
Yes.
Entrance stage middle.
There's cops surrounding Goldberg.
Yeah.
And they're telling him that he's under arrest. So, Goldberg immediately just starts, well, whatever it is, I didn't do it. Everybody in this city knows I do nothing but positive things for this community. Nobody here can take me in for anything. I didn't do it. He doesn't ask, what did I do?
No.
He's immediately ranting that he's innocent of whatever this might be.
He pulled, do you know who I am?
Absolutely.
He did. He then says, you'll have to shoot me
Yeah.
with your guns or mace me in order to get me downtown.
He told them to bring out all their arsenal.
Now listen, I knew that he ended up downtown, okay? When he said that, I was like, did I forget when they maced him?
They should have. They had every right to jump on him, beat the snot out of him, and then cuff him and stuff him.
He came
He
off like such an asshole.
Absolutely.
Insists you will have to shoot me or mace me to get me downtown. Now this goes on, I swear to God, for 5 fucking minutes. The cops say you gotta go downtown. I'm not going downtown. You gotta go downtown. I'm not going downtown. I'm innocent. I didn't do it. Whatever it is. Nobody bothers to tell him what it is. He just fucking keeps going forever. And finally, he just puts his hands behind his back and they cuff him.
There was one other officer that...
Jack! His
He
fucking
knew
buddy
he
Jack.
knew his name. Jack finally was able to talk a little bit of sense into him, and then the next thing you know, they're going downtown.
They go downtown. Well, as we shall see, they go to break.
The only thing, let me say one other thing. The only thing that I can conclude. Goldberg, like if you've ever heard a Goldberg interview, I mean, Goldberg's the real deal.
Sure.
He's a straight shooter. He does tons of stuff for kids. He never gets into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So they presented him with a script where he is being accused of being, as Hulk Hogan said, a sexual deviant. Okay?
Right.
If you saw the 24, every day he went to work angry.
Yeah.
He got this script. He fucking hated every last word in it, and he could not even attempt to deliver this. He knew what utter bullshit this was. That's what happened here. This could not be saved. And it went on forever.
Mm-hmm.
So after the break, he's still being led outside into the cop car. Kevin Nash arrives to harass the cops.
Hey, I got a match tonight.
You can't arrest that man. I'm going to wrestle him later. That was his argument.
Yes.
Clearly not a great law program in Detroit. So the cops drive away with Goldberg. Hogan shows up. Okay, in storyline, we are led to believe Hulk Hogan has abandoned pro wrestling for politics. He's going to run for president.
Yes.
And try to appeal to people to win a popularity contest to like him and win their votes.
Yes.
He laughs his ass off at the hero Goldberg being arrested.
It's funny how they showed up at the exact same time as Goldberg was leaving.
An amazing coincidence that is.
I know.
And he says, I believe men should be arrested if they're guilty. And he walks by Elizabeth, who's talking to two cops.
Actually, what he said was, I'm a politician now. I believe he's guilty.
Even better. Chris Jericho versus Saturn.
Oh, by the way, for those of you unaware, the actual cop...
Jack?
No, the police station.
Oh, sure.
Okay. It's fucking literally across the street.
Somebody sent me the Google map drawing the dotted line showing here's the cop shop, here's the dome.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like it may be a 10-minute slow walk.
I think it was 5.
Now,
walking. They took him away in a car, and he came back in a car.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Keeping all that in mind, Tony at one point even on this show says it's across the street.
Yes, because they're idiots.
They're complete morons.
Well, it was Georgia in January. It's probably not cold, I'm sorry.
This is not like on Raw, they're fighting the snow.
No.
Chris Jericho and Saturn. The wrestling here was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Probably maybe the only good thing on this entire show. Saturn makes his comeback. He's throwing all these cool suplexes, and Jericho's all doing all this wacky screaming selling, and it's all a lot of fun. So Saturn tries a cabrata again, the cursed move on Nitro today. And Jericho pulls the ref in the way. The ref goes down. Jericho hits a low blow on Saturn, and he is going for the Boston Crab when the ref calls for the bell. Didn't even get the hold on.
This Dickinson-Saturn feud is the worst feud.
Well, there's never been a good referee-wrestler feud.
No, but this one is particularly horrendous.
Actually, Beulah and Taz's manager. Help me.
Bill Alfonso?
Bill Alfonso. That was awesome.
Well, that was a manager and a man of the manager. Who I guess was a ref first.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, Brian, the Saturn Dickinson feud sucks ass. Goldberg is at the police precinct across the street, as Shivani notes.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, not only were the cameramen in the police station, but they knew where the cops were going to go before the cops went there. So they take Goldberg to an office. He's still cuffed. They lean him up against a back wall. I say, Elizabeth Lebetsky has filed charges for aggravating stalking.
Excuse me, who?
That's what Goldberg said. He had no idea who Elizabeth Lebetsky was. They told him it was Miss Elizabeth. He does this eye roll. He tells them to do their job. It's not him. Hey, remember when I buried those dorks in the Nitro party? Do you know what they were doing in their Nitro suite in the Georgia Dome for what they said was the biggest Nitro show of all time?
I do.
They were thumb wrestling.
Oh, really?
They were
man.
thumb wrestling on TV.
So
I got so angry at this.
I should note, by the way, that Elizabeth's real last name at this point was Lubetsky. She had married another man. So they used her real name here for this stupid fucking storyline.
And by the
I don't
way,
know that.
And by the way, on this show, nice follow up with Macho Man from last week. He wasn't even on the show.
No?
And he's busy.
He probably saw what was going on and said, I want no part of this program. I'll see you all next week.
Where's he fit in with Elizabeth at the cop? You know what I mean? At the
Yeah,
station?
for me, I wanted to be any part of that
see.
storyline.
And that, by the way, the Nitro party is when they said, what's your favorite part of the show? And one guy goes, when Goldberg went to jail. Keep him there.
There were chants of free Goldberg and one guy who wanted Goldberg in jail. Did you know, apparently in Atlanta, if you accuse someone of stalking and the police are interviewing you, they will film this and show it on TNT.
Yeah.
Live.
Well, it's a very important
This
case
seems...
of Vinny. This is like when OJ was flinging that.
Bronco.
This seems
The white
like
Bronco.
it would discourage people from reporting crimes.
It should discourage them from committing crimes as
Elizabeth
well.
was the accuser here. So, Liz says he's been following me in every arena we go to, every airport, the hotels, and the gym. And the cops say, let's go talk outside.
I go to the gym and he's right behind me. That guy goes, well, do you feel threatened? She says, of course.
The LWO party.
Oh, my God.
Okay,
This was the most stereotypical thing I've ever seen in my life.
You don't say.
it's way up there.
Hell of a party, though.
Well,
They had a mariachi.
we
band.
want to get into the details first. I just want to say the big picture of what happened here was apparently the LWO threw a party. They invited a camera crew to come film it. And even though they came off looking bad, they still have the camera crew take everything away and edit it together. That's the upshot of all this.
What I got out of this was, when I watched it, it appeared to me, the story is that Eddie is making all of this about himself.
Yes.
Yes.
And the LWO is concerned that he's changed.
Yes.
But then at the end, they were all behind him and chanting for the LWO.
Right. He is
What?
Drunk.
I don't know.
He is drunk with power and tequila.
That's actually that happened, yes.
I have no idea what the point of this was or why it made television.
So, well, let's begin because they gave it a lot of time, so we may as well get into
They
it.
sure did.
First of all, I've mentioned quite a few times here that even as this LWO thing has gone on, if you watch it, Eddie Guerrero is a guy from Texas. Speaking of a guy from Texas. This video was like the first crack at the Latino heat version of Eddie Guerrero.
He did show more charisma here than ever before in his entire WCW career.
Yes.
That's a positive.
So, they're playing with the lowriders, and there's women here, and there's... The LWO theme is playing, is what they play at their parties. Everyone's having a grand old time. They go inside for more partying, but Eddie stops and says, hey, El Dandy, stay here and park the cars. And El Dandy was not dandy about this. They go inside. There is, in fact, a mariachi band. A lot of good-looking women.
One in particular.
In the white.
Yeah.
Noticed her.
Fellas are all dancing and having a good time. Everyone's just having the time of their life. And Eddie takes Tejano's cowboy hat. He's a Silver King. Takes Silver King's cowboy hat and says, Texas, come with me. And they leave, and this led to nothing. We go to another room, apparently later in the night, and there's two couches. One, Eddie Guerrero surrounded by every good-looking woman in the world. The other, all the other dudes, crabby, grouchy, and alone. Bored and irritated. So they start playing cards. Cards are out, money is out, drinks are out, everyone's having a good time. Eddie shows up, orders Dandy and Damien go make some drinks, then takes their seats and their money at the card game. So guys start bitching about him in the hallway in Spanish. Psychosis, and I think Dandy and maybe somebody else was out there bitching. And then it ends, Eddie's outside. Now, he was giving a speech, and there were dozens of people chanting LWO, but I'm not sure there were any other wrestlers out there.
No, they were there. Like, Danny was
Were they
there. Yeah, it was
Okay,
weird.
I missed
That's why I was baffled.
because there were also a bunch of other random men.
Well,
So the
yeah.
party grew. It happens when you have a party with drinks and good-looking women.
Also, I don't even know if this is worth mentioning, but Rey Mysterio was there under duress.
Well, yes, they showed Ray one time. It was the point where everyone was pissed off at Eddie.
Yeah.
So he fit right in, not wanting to be seen.
That's true.
Yeah. This led to Rey Mysterio and Kidman versus Psychosis and Juventud.
The majority of this match was the announcers trying to get Eric Bischoff to say something.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was Eric Bischoff going to say about this match? Kidman and Ray versus Juvi and Psychosis.
I don't know. So Tony says, this will be a tornado match. There are no tags.
This thing.
You get in there, and guys stand on the apron and wait for tags. They do some stuff. It was boring. Nobody cared. A four-way broke out. Tony said, there you go. Tornado rules in effect. This was the point. That was the instant where I said, thank God this company died. Get that finger poke coming. I can't wait. Come on, guys.
Dude, you got years.
I know. So, Kidman accidentally hits Ray with a missile dropkick, and Psychosis is a Tijuana jam for the win. This was shitty.
It was fun.
I didn't have any problem with it. The finish actually looked like Kidman actually...
This sounds great, Craig. This sounds like a great finish.
Come on.
The finish actually looked like an accident. You know, a lot of those things, the misdirection spot when somebody gets...
Maybe it was. Who knows?
I have no idea.
It actually looked like...
If you're saying it looks sloppy and out of control, I agree.
I mean, the match was a little sloppy,
That's what I'm saying,
but it was
yeah.
fun. I enjoyed it.
You're saying it looked believable?
It looked believable.
So
Exactly.
it made Kidman look like a geek, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying...
He was an
that
idiot.
The heels got the better of him and outsmarted him.
So they're geeks.
All right.
Can we move on to Goldberg at the precinct?
Must we?
He says, listen, dude.
God, I hate this.
We're
I
booked
hate
at the
this show.
same arenas every week. The company books the hotels. Of course, she sees me at the gym. She's a member there, and I own the
I
gym.
own the gym. That was his best line.
Yes.
He says, what gym? And they give him the name.
The Obaki gym.
Obaki gym. He stops, looks at them. I own it.
See? This wasn't... Listen, the stuff with Goldberg and Liz, it was okay until the end. I'm going to tell you why it was okay, all right?
Okay.
Because if you've ever seen Liz, she's always so nervous and uncomfortable.
Okay.
And in this skit, she had to be nervous and uncomfortable, so she was perfect.
I like the point where she...
The payoff blew, but we'll get to that.
I like the point where they asked her what was Goldberg wearing, and she came up with red tights.
Red tights.
That's coming up here. That's coming up.
Yeah, there are like 8 of these segments.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Mean Gene calls Nash out for a promo. Nash says, Goldberg was screwed at Starrcade. I think Hogan's behind all these hijinks tonight. I know Flair's in charge. I got a favor to ask. I want a match against Hulk Hogan tonight. And he's sure to add, it'll be a warm-up. I'll still face Goldberg for the world title. So Flair appears. Flair agrees with Nash that Hogan is the one behind all this mess. He says, I have confirmed that Hulk Hogan is still under contract. So if Goldberg can't make it back to the building, then Kevin Nash, you will face Hulk Hogan instead. And I said, wait a minute. That's not what Nash said. You've changed this mid-promo.
Someone screwed up somewhere.
Yep.
All right, so now we're back to the cops.
And now Liz is here.
This was when the cop says, Liz, can you repeat everything that you've claimed? Mm-hmm. I'm a bad speller. I need to write it all down. So she says, I was at a Coke machine getting a Diet Pepsi, and he was right there. He was in red tights. He follows me to arenas and to
Bill Goldberg. Don't gloss over this. William Goldberg wearing red tights and presumably nothing else.
Well, later she said, I saw red.
Yeah.
I don't know what color the tights were.
You didn't envision Goldberg
I saw red.
walking around a gym in red tights.
I just figured he forgot his and borrowed Hogan's.
Or Kane's.
Sure.
She says, he calls and hangs up before he says anything.
Yeah.
He calls,
Right.
but he hangs up before he says anything.
That can happen.
How would you know?
There were no cell
stalker.
phones, Vinny. How do you know it was him calling?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. You're the worst detective.
I am.
I'm the victim here, she says. Do you understand that? And she's checking her watch. Which apparently we later find out she stole. I don't know from who.
Yeah, they did mention something.
It was
about-
weird.
That's an old looking watch.
That's an interesting watch. Just looks like my grandfather's.
Maybe it was Flair's.
I'm like, what? You stole... What?
Listen, the cliche here is that I've seen this is acting bad enough like to be in a porn film. I've seen some pornography in my life. Tony, I believe you have as well.
What?
I've never seen acting this bad in a porn movie.
She was starting to go off the rails.
Them and the cops, or her and the cops. This was unwatchably bad.
Oh,
But I loved it.
it wasn't that bad.
It
Got bad later.
It was terrible. I cringed the entire time.
Oh, how about this Hogan promo?
Me and Gene calls out Hogan.
He witnessed this sexual deviant Bill Goldberg being escorted out of the building. And what really makes him sick is that big, tall spoon, Kevin Nash.
Spoon. A big, tall spoon.
Spoon?
Who the fuck knows? What was he talking about?
A big,
Don't know.
tall spoon.
He's thin and round at the top?
He says, I'm going to have my final match
Ram
ever
the dish.
tonight. I'm going to win this match, retire as champion, go on to become president, and you'll call me Hollywood Hogan, the big bad wolf. And he goes, ooh!
He did. That's what happened.
What in the fuck was his promo?
Again,
Seriously.
he's still trying to be president at this point. Random, did you notice when he came out, they played the NWO theme, but you can still hear Voodoo Child underneath it?
Yeah, I did notice
They're
that.
lazy this week.
Then he's leaving, and Tony says, "You know, we're live tonight. Something nobody else in wrestling can claim. So if you're even thinking about turning the channel, fans, do not." That's what he says, exactly like that. If you're thinking of turning the channel tonight, fans, do not. We understand that Mick Foley, who used to wrestle here as Cactus Jack, is going to win their world title. Then he says, "Huh." Just like that. Huh.
Yep.
Appalled.
That's going to put butts in the seats.
That happened.
He actually said harumph. I just didn't know how to say it. That's what he said. Harumph.
Oh, God. There was a point earlier, by the way, when Bischoff first showed up at the desk, and Tony starts giving him instructions on how to be an announcer. One of the things he says is, put on these headphones. You're going to have 4 producers yelling at you all night long. They're going to tell you to say things that you have already said. You'll protest. Just say them anyway. Welcome to working for WCW. Earlier today, Chris Jericho was shown sucking up to the ref who disqualified Saturn. He specifically told him, "You have to show Saturn who's in charge. Disqualify him as soon as you can." And he did. Scott Steiner versus Konnan. So Scott cuts a promo. First, he offers to fuck all the women in the crowd. He claims that since he won the TV title, WCW can't censor him.
He says, "I'm out of control and I'm out of my mind and I love it. And I cannot be censored."
That's what he said. So Buff steps in. This was January 1999 in Atlanta. Atlanta's football team was doing very well at the time. And they had a dance called the Dirty Bird. And Buff begins to do the Dirty Bird. And everyone boos. And then Buff grabs his heart. Not making fun of Ric Flair. Making fun of the Falcons coach Dan Reeves, who in real life had triple bypass surgery to save his life just a few weeks prior.
Wow.
Yeah.
Buff, by the way, wearing a sleeveless leather onesie.
Well, yeah. Dude, he has a top hat with a portrait of himself painted on top of it.
I understand.
That's much weirder.
I don't know. The leather onesie with no sleeves is pretty weird.
I don't have one.
Can we move on here?
So, it's Konnan versus Scott. Konnan got less blown up than usual this week. Had the line about Mick Foley winning the title.
He says, this Raw show is taped. This Cactus Jack, who used to wrestle here as Cactus Jack, I fucked it up. He's going to win the world title. Then he pauses and says, "That's going to be their world champion."
Fuck yeah.
He regretted this for 19 years.
Well, he regretted it as soon as he said it. Foley's talked about it, because Foley eventually confronted him, and Schiavone apologized and said what he was told to do. Which, as he noted earlier on the show, he says things that he's told to say.
Yes.
Yeah. Regardless, Konnan goes to the Tequila Sunrise. Buff hits the ring for the DQ. And the fake ref runs in, declares Steiner the winner via submission. They worked Konnan over for a while. Nobody from the Wolfpack or WCW bothered to come out and help him.
This was shit. Speaking of Wrath promo.
So, Wrath comes out to talk.
Has a man's voice ever not matched him more than Wrath?
Mike Tyson.
I don't know, dude. He sounded like an Armstrong brother.
He's very Southern. Before he talks...
Wrath!
That's the way Mike Tyson sounds.
Before he talks, he's making his way out, the music's playing. They're still trying to get Bischoff to talk. And they mentioned Goldberg, if he has anything to say about that. And Bischoff says, just like this, "Goldberg's jailbait." Excuse me?
What?
Do you know what jailbait is, Eric Bischoff? Because I would not use that term to describe Goldberg. So, Wrath says he's been planning through competition for months.
I've been planning through competition for months.
People want to see a meltdown.
There's no competition, even though Nash beat him a month ago.
Dares anyone to come fight him. Out comes Bam Bigelow. So you get Bigelow and Wrath.
Can you believe that they just made this match out of nowhere on this show?
I enjoyed this.
Dude,
What?
Wrath versus Craig.
They clubbered each other.
When Wrath
happy.
issued an open challenge and Bam Bigelow came out, I was like, this should be like the biggest mid-card match that they can promote right now.
Yeah. You're right.
And they just fucking brought these two geeks out, and they had the most boring match, and nobody cared, and it ended in a DQ.
I liked to watch them clubber each other.
It sucked.
So they're doing this, and again, Bischoff's been silent for 5 minutes, and then at random he just says, "Prison punk." Like that. He was almost singing it out loud. So, yeah, they brawled everywhere. They were outside for about 8 minutes. We have to not count them out, and then finally he did, and it ended. More with Elizabeth.
This was where it absolutely just died a death. Like, it wasn't good before, but I was
No, it wasn't.
I was accepting of it. But this.
So they start catching her in her lies. Diet Pepsi had a Coke machine, and one guy thought, no, you told me it was a water fountain. Mm-hmm. Was he wearing red tights or was it black tights? And they started to threaten her with perjury.
In jail time.
And jail time, it is a felony.
You've been lying to us. Mm-hmm. You should go to jail.
And Liz suddenly says, you know what? It wasn't Bill. It must have been some other bald wrestler, she says.
There are a lot of bald wrestlers, she says.
Please apologize to Bill for me.
Tell him I'm sorry.
That's why Hugh Morris cut his hair.
To stalk Liz?
No, I was just making a bad joke.
Let's cut to the chase. After all of this, Elizabeth has falsely accused Bill Goldberg of aggravated stalking.
Sexual deviance.
She's wasted the time of a dozen officers. She finally apologizes and says she was wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Let her go.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was funny when they cut back to the arena. Tony had the temerity to look surprised.
There's no consequences for what Liz did.
No.
I looked this up on the internet. Findlaw.com. What she did was a misdemeanor. Up to a year jail time.
Up to.
They just let her go. I hated this. This was stupid. This company deserved to die after this.
Mm-hmm. At this point in the program, Eric Bischoff began to snore. He could not have been the only one. On that note, DDP wrestled Bryan Adams.
Hey, listen. People buried DDP for scripting his matches. But this guy got a decent match out of Bryan Adams.
Until the pile driver.
More power to the guy. I mean, it sucked. They fucked up the finish.
Trying to see what was decent about it.
But I mean, per Bryan Adams standards, this was an okay match.
I will say this. It's not Paige's fault. They booked him with Bryan Adams and gave him 15 minutes. That's not his fault.
There's no way it was 15 minutes. Was it really?
No.
It was like 5.
A long bear hug. Some other stuff. Every few minutes, Bischoff just says something random and not connected to anything. Tony speaks, and Bischoff says, "By golly." Which I guess is something Shivani says, and he's making fun of him. It just creeped me out. So, Paige fights off interference from Vincent, hits the diamond cutter for the win, and I will say this. People went apeshit when the hero hit his move and won. It was like they were really, really eager to see the stars of WCW go into battle and come out triumphant. Huh.
Maybe they're just glad it was over.
Also possible.
They totally botched that finish, too. Well, Bryan Adams did.
They took the cuffs off Goldberg, so we're taking you to the Dome.
30 minutes of TV time in his car to get to the Georgia Dome.
5 minutes away.
I hope he can make it.
Across the street.
So the main event is Hulk Hogan versus Kevin Nash.
Hogan comes out in jeans, boots, and a short-sleeved rash guard.
Boots with a heel on them.
Yeah.
Cowboy boots. Yeah.
They explain this is his street clothes.
Hey, I buy that. The man wears a do-rag every day for the past 30 years.
That's true.
Have you seen... Anyway. Kevin Nash comes out. First of all, I have seen this as a gift before. The most ridiculous pyro display of all time. It becomes self-parody to the point where there's sparklers and bombs and shooting stars and everything's going on for minutes. And he turns around and looks at it like he can't believe what's going on this long. And then he turns back and points at Hogan and they zoom in. It's still going off. The pyro just goes forever.
It was like a finale of a Kiss show.
Yes, actually.
It was massive.
I did not write down all of Buffer's introduction, but I had to note, although he is a native of Detroit, Michigan, his accomplishments and glory in professional wrestling make him a citizen of the world.
He's so bad.
What? A citizen of the world?
Yeah.
So Scott Hall comes out. They're buddies now, which actually were by the end of the show anyway.
Yep.
So Scott Steiner's in Hogan's corner. Scott Hall's in Nash's corner. They all go down there. Fans are chanting for Goldberg as the bell rings. They stall for a minute or two. They do a stare down. Nash pushes him into the corner. And Hogan pokes him in the chest. Nash takes this giant bump.
Biggest one he's ever taken.
Hogan, I believe in the newsletter, Bryan said it was like he'd been shot by a sniper. And Hogan covers him, and the ref counts 3. Now, of course, I knew all of this was going to happen, so I wasn't watching anything they did. I was only watching the fans. Nash takes his bump, and no one can figure out why. So they all jump up in confusion. They don't cheer. There's like one guy who cheers. Mostly they just all stand up, arms down at their sides. And then the ref counts 3, and they remain standing, arms at their sides, mouths agape. They've just been fucked. All 40,000 of them.
This was so hilariously, laughably awful. It was so bad.
This was their plan.
Yeah, this was in Atlanta, the home of Bill Goldberg. You sold 38,000 tickets to see Goldberg perform. He gets sent to the cops, down to the precinct, and then he rushes back here at the end. So they've just changed the title. They fucked the fans. Hogan's the champion. Now it's Goldberg's chance. And what does he do?
Goldberg runs out. He runs wild a bit. Hits all his big moves.
Nearly kills Nash with a super kick.
Yeah. He goes for the jackhammer on Hogan. Now, there's 4 guys out there, so Lex Luger's run out to watch his back. But as soon as Goldberg goes for the jackhammer, Lex turns on him. Lex lays him out. They all gang up on him. They put him in the torture rack. He's still got the cuffs on, so they cuff him to the ropes. They've got a taser now. They tase him again. And they tear up his shirt and they spray paint him. NWO for life all over his back. It's like, okay, we've seen this 100 times before. Then Hall and Hogan get the bright idea, hey, let's paint his head.
Let's paint Goldberg's head.
They spray black paint on the back of his head. And Hogan just puts a red stripe right down the top. Bill Goldberg did not know this was coming. Bill Goldberg was not happy about it. Like you say, we watched that 24. I watched every Goldberg segment in a new light now. Because I know how pissed off at the world he was, which is a quality trait to admire in a man. But he hated everything. Why would you fuck with him?
Because he was handcuffed to the ropes.
He wouldn't always be.
Well,
he wasn't going to be there
they're
for the time.
so lucky that dude was handcuffed to the ropes right here.
Oh, my God.
Probably they used a real cattle prod. They were like, just in case. Got this fucking thing if this guy gets loose.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because after they spray paint his head, he starts throwing kicks and punches at him. They back up. Hall goes back to zapping the cattle prod again, and Goldberg is not having this. There's no selling for this cattle prod this time.
He does not sell the cattle
He's
prod.
Like, fuck all of you, I'm going to kill you all. And they take the belt, and they tag it again, and Nash says, deja vu. Yep. 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, Hulk Hogan was the third man at Bash at the Beach, and now we're just starting over.
You know what's amazing about it, too? Nash, the booker, as they're spray painting the belt and everything, Nash starts laughing and saying, isn't deja vu great? Because he thought this was so fucking awesome. They thought this was going to turn it all around. The band is back together again. Hulk Hogan is champion. The NWO is back. We fucking got it made. This was the beginning of the end. Actually, we've said that like 15 times.
This really was, though.
This was another big beginning of the end.
This was the point of no return.
No, actually, believe it or not, it wasn't. Because they do the February pay-per-view and still... Their February pay-per-view with Hogan versus Flair does a better buy rate than WWE's February pay-per-view with Vince versus Steve Austin.
That is stunning, actually.
It's mind-blowing. Yeah. Now, over the next 52 weeks, I think they went from like a 1 point something to a 0.1. So it completely collapses in the next 52 weeks. But yes, this was fucking bullshit. It was a horrible show, and it sucked.
The best thing is, Nash didn't have to really drop the title. He beat Goldberg, and
yeah, they squandered it.
And then Hogan didn't beat Goldberg. He was given the title.
Yes.
So
They squandered the end of the streak.
They did that too.
And
the title, because Nash doesn't care about it.
And Nash could beat Goldberg, but Hogan couldn't, and was given the title.
Everything about this was stupid. There's nothing positive to say about any of this.
No, this absolutely sucked. Terrible show, everybody.
A miserable television show.
Horrible.
I can't imagine anyone ever watched again, to be honest.
2 more years. 2.5.
Man. When's it go to 2 hours?
I got about a year.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's a bad choice of words. The worst show. WCW Monday Nitro 174, January 11th, 1999. Show opens with clips of Hulk Hogan on Thunder looking absolutely homeless. He looked worse here than Mick Foley did on Raw.
No, let's not get crazy.
He promises...
This outfit he was wearing. It was like Konnan was going to the gathering of the Juggalos.
I don't even know.
He had huge pants and a button-up flannel shirt and a beanie and...
The beanie. I used to wear a beanie before.
Anyway.
He promises to bring backup to Nitro. Mean Gene brings out Ric Flair for a promo. Flair does the big, exaggerated Mean Gene. Says this used to piss Eric Bischoff off, so now he's going to do it every time. He plugs his upcoming tag match with 19-year-old David Flair.
He's actually 21, but...
Sounds better.
For those of you that are not keeping track, they got a pay-per-view this coming Sunday.
Yeah.
Back in real time.
Yep.
Like, they have announced a Rick and David versus Barry Windham, Kurt Hennig match, and I swear to God, I'm watching this going, is that the main event?
Yeah.
Because first off, there's a bunch of stuff here, but Flair talks about Hogan. He rehires J.J. Dillon. I'll try and get through this quick. He announces, Hogan, your first title defense is coming up. I'm like, oh, good, a main event for Sunday. He says, it's coming up next month.
Uh-huh. It's at Super Brawl.
Well, you don't want to rush things.
So there's a pay-per-view Sunday and the world champion. Okay, so what's the fucking main event? So they go on, and finally JJ announces it's Goldberg versus Scott Hall in a ladder match with an object hanging from the ceiling. What object, you might ask? Well, I wrote down every single thing that they referred to this object. They referred it
took them
to
many tries.
Yes, as I fuck it up right there. They called it a stun stuck, a stun stick, a cattle prong, a cattle prod, and a stun gun. And a taser. Okay, that's 6 things.
This is not the best promo of J.J. Dillon's career.
For you song makers out there, you know what to do.
What?
That'll be awesome. Trust me.
And Flair calls out the LWO. Eddie, by the way, just got in an auto accident. He's out for a long time.
Poor Eddie.
Obviously, without Eddie, what do you have an LWO for?
Yeah.
So the storyline to get rid of them is Rick says, hey, take off all your shirts and I'll give you a shot. Okay?
Actually, what he said was, I'll give you money, cars, and women.
Okay, money, cars, and women. So obviously they all take off their shirts.
Which they had, but Eddie was hoarding the week before.
Except Rey Mysterio will not take off his LWO shirt. Now, for those of you that don't listen to this show, the fucking storyline is that Rey Mysterio is a member of the LWO under duress.
Right.
He didn't want to be in the LWO. He was forced to be in the LWO when he lost a match. He was given the shirt. He didn't want to wear it. He was forced to. Now Ric Flair gives them the opportunity to have women, cars, and money. All they have to do is take off the shirt. Everyone takes off their shirt except Rey. What in the fuck is going on?
Well, he's protesting the protest. I don't know.
I hate this show.
It was really awful.
And it only started.
Yeah, you covered most of the details here. JJ was rehired as chairman and, quote, with a new car and a woman limousine driver.
Don't know what that means, but it's got to be
Well,
awesome.
Ric Flair said it. Do the math. They said, we don't know who's going to challenge Hulk Hogan in February. I know a guy who won 100-some matches in a row and got screwed out of his title recently. Just a thought. Booked the Scott Hall match. It was very difficult for them. LWO stuff. And, yeah. Oh, and Flair booked himself in a match with Kurt Hennig for tonight.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Thank God. It's the only good thing on the show.
Absolutely.
Tradition hype video showing great stars of the past. Funks. Jack Briscoe, Dusty Rhodes, and Ronnie Garvin.
Yeah, Ronnie Garvin.
Wahoo. How do you forget Wahoo?
Well, he did have Wahoo in there. I didn't write down everyone, but we've been watching the Ronnie Garvin title reign.
Oh my God, we've been talking about this show for an hour now. Gene comes out and interviews Saturn. This is a 3-hour show. We got to get going.
Saturn comes out for a promo. First thing he says is, I can't follow Ric Flair. Then he proves it. Calls out Jericho. Jericho says, I beat you fair and square. You're whining and crying like a schoolgirl. You should be wearing a dress. I'll fight you a third time, but if I win, you have to wear a dress for the rest of his career. Saturn says, no. Eventually, he badgers Saturn into accepting the steps, and that's that.
That's not that. Saturn agrees to a loser. If he loses, he must wear a dress.
Yeah.
They're about to go to break, and Gene says, can you believe that? And Tony Schiavone says, I can believe anything on this program. And then we had a match. The first match on the show.
Yeah.
20 minutes in. Saturn versus Chat. This is the first match they're giving us here on the show. With Scott Dickinson as a ref.
Scott Dickinson
because
comes
we
out,
have to have bullshit.
makes
just
himself the ref in the
won't die.
match. Tells the other ref, JJ's calling you. Go away.
And let me tell you what happened. Saturn mounts the guy and is throwing illegal punches. Dickinson tries to pull him off. Saturn shoves him down. Shat hits a low blow behind Dickinson's back. How is any of this Scott Dickinson's fault? It's all Saturn's fault. Announcers are yelling at Dickinson to be fair. I'm like, he is being fair.
So the ref, or Sonny Ono, comes out, takes the ref. Jericho hits the ring with a shovel. Hits Saturn with a shovel.
A legit shovel.
Because his whole thing was a burial.
Boom. Saturn falls into Dickinson and says, hey, you fell into me, I'm disqualifying you. Cat's the winner.
Okay, that was at least funny. If you're going to be a heel ref, like, be a heel ref.
So Jericho then attempts to put a dress on Saturn, but they clearly did not rehearse this.
No,
Like
Saturn's helping him.
Like 3 minutes go by, and they're still trying to get his head through the sleeve.
Yes, exactly.
And they gave up, and Jericho just left.
This is like me trying to dress Paisley. She does not like getting dressed.
And I see.
Well, who does?
Clips of Flair cutting a
Me.
promo on Bischoff on Thunder. Opening Nitro credits rolled. Bischoff goes to whatever his new job is. He shows up at WCW offices. Gets out of a limo. There's a green Jag in his parking spot.
Money green.
Money green Jag. His card won't let him into the building. He has to yell at him to open the door. As he walks in, just by the entranceway at random, a Nintendo 64 with WCW NW Revenge playing. No way, to this day, I could just walk by and not pick up a controller. Bischoff is rude to all the new staff. Flair is fired. They make him wait in the office all day. He goes on a rant about how he was there in 1991 when Flair and Jim Ross, who he says by name, were running the company and couldn't get 400 people in a building. Finally, they say, Flair will see you now. Flair's taken over Bischoff's office.
By the way, when they say Flair will see you now, a woman comes up, looks just like Linda McMahon. It's Janie Angle. They called her Janie. She was Eric's right-hand woman in this company. She knew everything. All the contracts, where the bodies were buried. So,
You should get her on the show.
hated Eric. She wanted to quit, and so she called WWE. They were going to hire her. Bischoff found out, gave her this gigantic raise to stay and not leave. So when they're going to the back, Eric's like, did Ric Flair give you a huge raise and now you're living in your big house? That's why. Eric gave her that raise.
So, Flair's in Bischoff's office, I keep saying office, whispering. This is like the worst Ric Flair promo ever. I can hear half of what he said. I'm going to make your life miserable for 90 days. He's got a box of Bischoff stuff in the office. He says, let's go outside. It's time for your next venture. And they go out there, and Bischoff is confused. His car is gone. The limo drives away. And Flair says, that's your new job. And he points to the ring truck. Bischoff stops, freezes, drops his box of stuff, and just stares. That made me laugh a lot. So Bischoff is now part of the ring crew. He has to ride with this guy from Atlanta to Knoxville. He gets in the truck, and they drive away. There was good stuff in here, but this went like 3 times as long as needed.
Dude, this went like an hour. It was way too long. But this thing did like a 6.2 rating.
Wow.
This quarter hour.
The funny thing is, in Flair's office, there was a coat rack, and on the coat rack was Flair's rope.
Yes. He wore his rope to work, apparently.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mean Gene is back to call out Chavo Jr. and Pepe.
Another stupid interview. How many interviews are on this show?
All of them.
Lots.
With Chavo.
Chavo wants to have a birthday party for Pepe the horse. They got a cake out on a table in case you can't see where this is going. Norman Smiley comes out and says, I'm upset that you didn't invite me. Let me repeat that. I'm upset that you didn't invite me. Chavo replies, hey, you weren't invited. We know. So Norman offers a handshake. Pepe accepts. Norman lays out Chavo, puts his face in the cake, lands on the table. Table won't break. Norman takes Pepe. They go through the parking garage into the parking lot. There's a wood chipper there. He throws the horse in the wood chipper. He's destroyed the horse, Tony says.
Don't all stadiums have a wood chipper out back?
In a list of crazy things seen on Nitro shows,
That's fair.
you could call any landscaper and say he'll give you $200 to be in the parking lot in an hour. Is it time for a wrestling match, guys?
You know, everybody thought that I was just going to be so happy that Pepe was destroyed and I would love this. I hated this. I'm so sick of this. Pepe was involved. Norman Smiley stole his fucking stick horse and threw it into a wood chipper.
Couldn't even take it to the glue factory.
I hate this show.
Now they're going to have more terrible matches.
Now, finally, we got something funny, even though it wasn't a match.
It's true.
They go to Raven at his house.
At home with Raven.
Yep.
First thing, the Sandman makes his debut on Nitro. Is he smashing a beer can over his head and bleeding everywhere? Is he wrapped in barbed wire? No. The Sandman is wearing a button-up shirt and eyeglasses. His back is to the camera. He's playing backgammon with Raven, who's in a bathrobe.
Yep.
He's wearing khaki shorts.
Raven wants his high school yearbook.
I was in awe. I must have missed this show the first time. You bring in the Sandman, who has one positive asset, and that's being the Sandman, and you make him not be the Sandman.
Well, he'll be the Sandman eventually,
I
but
guess.
they're here chilling out. Scotty wants to see his high school yearbook.
Calls him James.
Sandman says, and I quote, "Come on, Scotty, that's your mom. You don't have to disrespect her like that." To which Raven says, and I quote, "Shut up, Jim." They go to find his yearbook. It's all pictures of Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Apparently, Sandman, Canyon, and Raven all went to high school together.
Cool. All right, Wolfpack arrives. I got to get us through the show.
NWRI's B-teamers there. They're a little upset. They're trying to cut promos, but there's a squad of Harleys there, all revving their engines. These guys are shouting at the top of their lungs, trying to get over the bikes.
Hogan's trying to talk over the motorcycles. It's the Hells Angels with Chuck Zito. Apparently they thought this was a big fucking deal because the Hells Angels drive the NWO. They accompany them to the ring. Mm-hmm. They show them going down the aisle. They show them going down to the ring. They show them going around the ring in their motorcycles. They had to replay this goddamn thing how many times? We get it. There were motorcycles here.
Yeah.
Chuck Zito's here. Can we move on?
Look, Tony says, it's Chuck Zito from New York. And Larry says, who is Chuck Zito from New York?
I asked the same
I
question.
don't know. I didn't look it up. I don't care. Hulk Hogan's pants, 10,000 times more ridiculous than Okada's pants at Wrestle Kingdom.
That's fair.
Black denim bell bottoms. Hogan says, yes, I'm under contract. I will fight anybody Flair wants. I'm still going to the White House. Nash says tonight he will prove he is wrestling's real giant in his match with the Giant. Steiner says, I'll beat up DDP tonight. He calls himself the People's Champion. Well, he's white trash. You're all white trash, so I guess he's right. I'm going to take his wife and show her what it's like to be with a real man. Hogan names all the bikers.
Then he flexes and says, "My arm is bigger than your leg."
Probably was.
Steiner was awesome. Steiner was the only good thing about this entire segment. He's just crazy.
There's a few mild Goldberg chants, and that's it. Mission accomplished. You murdered him. That's it, everyone. That's the end of that segment.
We finally get our second match of the night. 75 minutes into the show?
May I stop you? They replayed the finger poke angle, including showing what happened after the show went off the air when the Atlanta Falcons, who were on their way to a Super Bowl, they all partied with their ex-teammate Goldberg, who was out there for this media and photo op with spray paint all over his head. You fucking assholes. Now, match number 2.
75 minutes into the show, Rey Mysterio versus Kaz Hayashi. They go 90 seconds, and Lex Luger comes out and runs in for the disqualification.
Yep.
Okay, I will admit, this was so stupid I laughed.
Now Luger wants Rey... Listen, Luger wants Rey to take off his LWO shirt.
Yes.
You're not part of the Wolfpack, he says. No shit, he's part of the LWO. Wants him to take the thing off. He won't take it off. Finally, he racks him and beats his ass. Konnan comes down. He's mad. He's mad that Luger beat up Rey. He flat out says, "Why are you beating him up? He's no threat."
what he said.
He's not wrong.
That is what he said.
Luger says, well, he's not Wolfpack NWO. He shouldn't be wearing that shirt. What?
Maybe Lex is dyslexic. That's why I call him Lex. He says LWOF.
So then, in the highlight of the entire show, Konnan is so mad that he tells Luger, I'm glad you weren't in my music video.
That was actually, yes, because Konnan said, why are you doing this? And Lex said, you didn't put me in your music video.
Nash comes out, they jump Konnan, they beat his ass, they zap him with a taser, or a stun stick, or a stun gun, or
Cattle
whatever
prod.
the fuck it is. And the fans of all things chant, we want Sting.
Yeah.
Not Goldberg.
Well, Goldberg's dead, you see.
The guy who
They've
hasn't
murdered
even been
Goldberg.
on
Did I
TV
mention this?
for like 4 months now. I don't even know where Sting's been.
Like Brett heard him.
I wouldn't show up.
Nothing good can happen.
They send me a check every week. I'm not showing up.
Clips of Hogan from Thunder chewing out the Giant for getting suckered by Randy Savage, costing him Bischoff the match against Flair. This is where they booked Nash versus Giant, with the loser getting kicked out of the NWO.
Great.
Mean Gene then brings Giant out for a promo. So, on Thunder, it was winner of the match gets to stay in the NWO. Now, Giant says, I'm going to kick Nash's ass, and then Hogan's next, and I'll take all of you out. They couldn't keep their mind made up for 4 days. It changed everything on Nitro.
So then we're about an hour and a half into the show. We have had the one match at the beginning, which I've already forgotten because it was absolutely completely useless. Saturn and Shat. Then we had a 90-second Rey Mysterio match with a DQ. So finally it's time for the third match on the show. And what do they give us? Booker T versus Lenny Lane. 90 minutes into the show. An absolute nothing match with a nothing finish. And that's it.
Booker hit the sidekick and won. First clean finish on the show.
Now it's time for more videos. It is Hulk Hogan and Nash talking about their epic title match last week with the finger poke of doom.
This made me upset.
It was actually funny, I thought. They're talking
I can
about
see both sides.
What a brutal battle it was, and man, you hit me with that finger and I just went flying. On this show, this was good.
It's one of the better things on this show. Then the announcers just sat back and talked for a while. It was the View breaking out on Nitro. Then they replay the fucking bikers.
Hey, they had Chuck Zito on Nitro. Let's get
screamed.
the most out of this.
Dallas Page and Scott Steiner. God bless these men.
You know what's funny about this match? Very early in the match, Bagwell gets in the ring.
Yeah.
Okay, the match is DDP versus Scott Steiner. Bagwell gets in the ring. Okay? On any other show, I would be so furious that this was not a DQ. On this show, I was like, fine, just let them have a finish, okay? I don't care what rules get broken.
Just entertain
I don't
me.
care what bullshit happens. Just let them have a finish.
The announcers were sure to point out that Page had walking pneumonia.
Well, what a finish it was. Ref bump. Powder in DDP's eyes. Steiner hits DDP with a chair. Puts him in the recliner. The referee wakes up. Vincent, who somehow got knocked out somewhere, he's lying in the middle of the ring. The ref crawls over his body in order to rule Scott Steiner the winner.
At all.
That happened.
This is so much worse than this week's Raw. It is so much worse than the Raw 19 years ago this week. It's so much worse than last week's show. That's a legendarily bad show. This show is terrible.
Before the bullshit finish, the 6 or 8 minutes this went, it was basically a handicap match. Bagwell did as much stuff as Steiner did. It was very good until then. They tried so hard to save this show, but it was not to be done. Goldberg apparently did a sit-down interview, which consisted of like one clip here and one clip later. He said, I made a lot of mistakes in my football career, in college, in the NFL, but people who rise above correct those mistakes. My last mistake was thinking my match with Kevin Nash to be fair. I've earned my doctorate in professional wrestling. I will never make that mistake again.
You can get a doctorate in this?
Yeah.
Clips of Eric Bischoff setting up the ring, taking orders from Klondike Bill.
This went on forever. It
Now-
sucked.
I wanted to put my boot in this guy's
This did
backside.
not do a 6.4 rating.
All I can say about this is Eric Bischoff clearly at some point must have set up a ring with Bryan Alvarez, because he pulled off the trick of, I'm going to do everything so incompetently they kick me out and don't let me set up the ring anymore. Craig, can you confirm this?
I hadn't thought of that, but you're not wrong.
That was the impression I got.
Well, of the three of us, who's the idiot?
The guy who can set up a ring correctly. Anyway, this went forever.
Exactly.
I never set up a ring.
That's my point.
Bastards. This wasn't funny. And by that I mean this segment here with Eric Bischoff. Our conversation here is actually very funny.
Vinny's very bitter about all these years setting up the ring because he didn't figure it out. Fuck it up enough times, they quit asking you. Hello?
Now, I had to watch Bischoff fuck this up for like 10 minutes and it was never any good.
Or you could just be big and menacing and they don't bother you. You had half of it.
Craig.
It's true.
Okay. So, like everything else in the show, this went too long. We had more clips of Goldberg getting laid out last week. Tony Schiavone called the finger poke, quote, the horrible act that will live in infamy in the annals of pro wrestling.
It's true.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Hall comes out for a promo, had a funny line.
No.
Oh, God.
They aired a fucking
This
replay.
is so much longer than Nitro.
They had a fucking replay of Eric Bischoff setting up the ring. Then Scott Hall came out.
He had one funny line. Talks about the finish at Starrcade, says, what a shocking finish that was.
Ha!
That's funny.
There was a
He
suicide.
used the cattle prong.
There was a Suicide King sign in the crowd. Apparently, Matt Farmer moved to Knoxville.
Yes.
Let's see. Oh, then he said, I'm going to shock Goldberg again, and everyone cheered because Goldberg is dead. Scott Hall versus Bam Bigelow in a mean guy match. It went 3 or 4 minutes. Out comes Disco Inferno. Wrath shoves Bigelow off the ropes. Bigelow no-sells it. He goes after Hall. Disco had passed Hall a stun gun. Hall stuns Bigelow, pins him. What shit?
I had such high hopes for this match.
Why?
Because Hall and Bigelow.
Dude, get with the program. You're watching Nitro in 1999.
Understood.
Ric Flair versus Kurt Hennig.
Oh, we had another Goldberg deal. Called Scott a loser, sickened by Luger. Says he had his doctorate and class began Sunday and Hall better not be late. He doesn't know Scott Hall. Now we had Hennig versus Ric Flair.
We did.
Oh my God, David Flair comes out. Listen, God bless this guy. I'm sure he's a great park ranger nowadays. He's out there in his street clothes. He doesn't even look like a fan.
He looks like a park ranger.
He's below fan level. He's a guy that the fans would be bullying. He's all skinny. He's wearing some stupid outfit. His cheeks are rosy red. He looks 19, even though he's not.
Slack-jawed expression.
He's just...
Deer in the headlights.
He has no idea what to do. At any moment, he's in the semi-main event of the pay-per-view on Sunday.
He would have to light himself on fire to find charisma. You know what I mean?
No.
There's just not...
What are you talking about?
That's the only thing that could elicit a reaction for this guy.
What does that have to do with charisma? Do you know what charisma is?
I understand that.
It's not
had none of it.
burning. The point of this is, this was horrible.
And
God damn it. They had a good match, except shit's going on outside. Heels attack David. Flair goes after him. Chop blocks Hennig's leg. Puts on the figure 4. Everyone thinks it's going to be a finish. Wyndham runs in for the DQ. Where's my music? Air just goes out of the crowd.
Yeah.
I'm sickened.
David trips the heels as they run the ropes. He grabs a chair to help his dad. They clear the ring. David Flair was in so deeply over his head. Goldberg says the next question is who's left at Sold Out. Scott Hall is going to be first.
Great.
Giant Cut versus Kevin Nash. I regret to tell
Finally,
you,
we're at the end of this show.
I was behind schedule. I did not have time to recap Michael Buffer's intros. I bet they were epic. Speaking of epic, Giant was huge.
They had the most hideously boring main event you've ever seen. Every boring spot these guys do in one boring match. Giant is exhausted.
yes.
He's not doing anything but laying there.
They went fast for 30 seconds. And that was all Giant had.
he was blown up getting to the ring.
Yeah. Kevin Nash has to pace himself to not blow up the other guy anymore. I'm not making that up. Now, I will say this. Giant here, like as big as he ever was, at least in WCW, and I know it's a work, but when Kevin Nash picked this fucker up and body slammed him with ease, that was impressive. He goes for the powerbomb. Heenan notes Giant's gained 50 pounds in the past year.
Dude.
Giant avoids the powerbomb, makes one hideous comeback. So blown up. Hall's in the ring. Whatever. They're just doing stuff. And then Nash grabs the big-ass wrench Bischoff had earlier. He levels Giant with it. He pins him. Bischoff joins the announce desk to dub Nash the NWO Corporate Giant. Everything has to be corporate now.
Well, what he did before he announced the Corporate Giant was he said these words. The Titanic just sank. Say hello to Kevin Nash.
Well, that's kind of amazing.
You guys didn't gloss over when Bischoff was putting the ring up, he used a wrench with a blue handle, and that is what...
Yeah, it couldn't just be any random wrench Kevin Nash found in the ring.
No.
It had to be Bischoff's magic wrench.
Yes, yes.
That's the one he used to cheat to win.
Yeah. And they stunned Giant with a stun gun. They spray painted him. He's in WWF in like a month. I can only assume this is finally his last appearance. Right?
I hope so, dude.
We're asking the wrong guy. You would think you'd be losing weight when WWE wants you to come.
Hell no, he's getting bigger.
And not in main events. They did more to push him on his way out the door than they did when he was on top.
They even gave him pyro on the way out.
Well, the idea is you make him a star, then you beat him. Then he leaves.
Now, usually the finishers report on Nitro is boring. This was not a usual show.
This will be quick.
I might add, by
Kinda.
the way, NWO spray painted the Giant afterwards.
Yes, he
They
did.
tagged him.
Not his head, though. The finishes on this show were disqualification of the wrong guy by a crooked ref. Disqualification when Luger interfered a minute in. Clean pin. Submission after interference by 2 men, a ref bump, powder, and a chair. Pin after interference by 2 men and a stun gun. DQ to save a guy from a figure 4. Pin after interference from 1 guy and his big-ass wrench.
This show is so draining.
Is it just me? You load Nitro and it says 2 hour, 20-minute show. You think, okay, it's 4, I'll be done at 6:20. And then it's so bad it actually warps time, and you watch it and now it's like 7. This happens to me every time I watch Nitro. It takes me 3 hours to watch a 2 hour, 20-minute show.
They probably go for a bunch of walks.
No! It breaks the space-time continuum.
I seriously was watching this show. I was ready to give up, and at about when they had gone an hour with one match, it was 4 minutes long. I was like, done. I could never recover.
Yeah, this one was
I
tough to get
hate
through.
this show. Who was it that claimed that this show got better after the finger poke of doom? Who said that?
Not me. It's got to be one of our listeners.
They're wrong.
Sure.
Anyway, that's Nitro, everybody. Nitro was better than Raw this week. Can you believe it? It was substantially better than Raw. I went as far as when the show was over, I wrote, this show was great. Am I the only one?
Yes.
This was a great show. All right, well, you'll see, Vinny. By the time we're done, you're going to agree this was a great show.
Nitro number 175, January 18th, 1999. Open with pics from Sold Out of the NWO laying a beating on David Flair as Ric Flair watched. They made him watch. So Nitro opens with the Horsemen having a meeting backstage. Flair is throwing trash everywhere, says Hogan's a dead man. Meanwhile, there was a camera in the NWO's limo. They're driving around having a good old time. They pull up in the building. Flair runs up, smashes the window with a tire iron. They pull away. Still, as far as I can tell, having a good old time.
They laughed.
They didn't seem to care.
Yeah, they laughed at the Horsemen smashing the windows in with a crowbar.
It was the old man with the crowbar.
Yeah.
So Flair goes to the ring for a promo. He's ranting, he's raving. Books himself versus Hogan, and
Please do not gloss over this ranting and raving, Vinny. He swore he was not challenging Hogan. He was telling this son of a bitch that they were having a match at Super Brawl, and you'll not only have to beat me, you'll have to kill me to keep me from killing you.
he did say that.
This is dialogue we can't have in 2000.
No.
There was
18.
a couple of things we saw on both shows.
A couple.
Yeah.
He said, forget
An
about
entire program.
14 times, as his 14-time world champion, forget about 14 times, I want to be the man who killed Hulk Hogan dead.
Yes, he did
You
say
can't
that.
say that nowadays.
No.
He swore to God at Super Brawl, all Hogan had was buddies that ran in, but it was going to be 2 guys in, 1 guy out. This promo was awesome.
So then he said, I know Eric Bischoff is behind all of this. He called Bischoff down to the ring. Bischoff comes out and says he denied having anything to do with what happened the night before. Flair wanted to wrestle him. Bischoff says, by contract, you can make me set up the ring. You can make me sell concessions, but I am not a wrestler. I do not have a wrestling contract. You can't make me wrestle. So Flair tries to bait him into a match. He says, for 25 years, promoters have been trying to get me to put my hair on the line, and I always said no. But Eric Bischoff, if you beat me tonight, I'll shave my head. Bischoff still says no. He's walking to the back, and Flair says, I'll give you your company back, too. Didn't Raw just do this exact same thing last week, by the way?
Stuff happens all the time.
I guess so. So Bischoff turns around. He is about to accept when outruns David Flair. He pushes Eric. He runs to the ring. He does the best impression of his father he could possibly do.
Hey, good for him.
Aside from turning red,
Well, he's always red.
Yeah.
He's red standing there. But, like, as far as promos go, David Flair cut one of the better promos on this here show.
Sure.
He's very, very passionate.
He challenged Eric to a fight. So Bischoff accepts, and he says Ric Flair's hair and WCW are still on the line. And I thought, wait, Flair's the commissioner or whatever. He's going to stand for this? And Flair did. Flair agreed that if Eric could beat David Flair, then Ric Flair would shave his head, and Eric would get WCW. But he added, if David beats Rick, we're going to shave you two.
No.
I actually said, excuse me, correct myself.
Yes,
He said,
please.
we'll shave your head and your ass.
Yes.
right?
He'll shave your head and your ass.
That's what he said.
Yeah. Which they didn't, by the way.
No,
False advertising.
False advertising.
And Zabisco said, "I don't want to see that."
No.
So this was quite the rigmarole. I was kind of hating it for a while when David came out, because
David Morty came out later.
David's challenging Eric, and like Eric's accepting, but Flair's in charge, and Eric has no power, and it's like, well, why doesn't Rick have a say in this? They finally made it all work at the end. It was a little convoluted, but it was fine. By the way, can I just say really quickly, this was setting up David Flair versus Eric Bischoff, with Eric Bischoff and Ric Flair's hair on the line, and the future of the company.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a big match.
I just want to remind everyone of that.
We had pics of Goldberg winning the ladder match at Sold Out against Scott Hall, despite the interference from Disco Inferno. There's most of this era is a blur to me, but I remember this finish vividly because it was so awesome. Because the winner is the one who climbs the ladder, gets the taser, and zaps the other guy. You have to zap the other guy to win.
Yeah.
So Goldberg, there's some rigmarole, to quote Brian, but he gets the taser, and he's got Hall dead to rights, but he wants to he wants to win the fight in a noble way. So instead of just tasing him using the weapon, he throws the stun gun in the air, Hall goes to catch it, and Goldberg spears him to death. Then, after he has beaten him cleanly, then he zaps him because that's what you have to do to win.
Goldberg's awesome.
Because Goldberg's awesome.
I should say, this is a minor nitpick, because I'm sure there's more to come, but they show the footage of Goldberg beating Hall in a taser on a pole ladder match or whatever. And they say, Goldberg got his revenge. I'm like, Nash ended the streak. And then I'm thinking,
And Hogan's got the belt.
so who did Nash wrestle on this sold-out pay-per-view? The answer is, he wasn't even on the fucking show.
Nope.
So basically, Nash ends Goldberg's streak. Nash hands the title over to Hulk Hogan. Goldberg gets his revenge against Scott Hall.
Did you know, Brian, that WCW is now dead?
Well, I mean, my point was, this is low on the list of problems, but I did find it funny when they said Goldberg got his revenge.
When you think about it, Scott Hall took Six's place.
Basically.
Six always got jobbed.
Sure.
Dude, Hall did jobs for everybody.
That's what I mean.
He was always the guy that took the fall. He didn't care. Just made his money.
Indeed he did. Chris Jericho versus Booker T. They had a lot of time, and they had not yet given up all hope in the company, so they worked really hard and had a really good TV match.
Well, that dragged a little in the middle. It was very, very long.
It was, it was long for 1999 too. By 2018, it was like 3 matches long. But they did some stuff. Booker made his comeback, hit the sidekick, hit the missile dropkick, and won.
Yeah.
Great.
The match would have been a lot better if the announcers would have actually called the match instead of talking about Bischoff and Flair the whole time.
Well, welcome to every match on this show. And hey, later on, they had a Bruise Cruise promo.
Yes.
Speaking
they
of
did.
Chris Jericho.
Exactly.
That's why Mike Sempervive was banned from Jericho's boat.
That's right.
Because he mentioned the Bruise Cruise. That's what made Jericho so mad.
Really?
Yeah. He thought that Mike was belittling him by comparing his cruise to something that was an obvious failure. Yes.
Well, don't do that, Mike.
No, he made a mistake. Although, honestly, I would like to know what went wrong with the Bruise Cruise.
Did it fail?
I don't know. Apparently, Jericho was upset enough that he banned Mike from the boat for the comparison. But this company was still hot at this point. Like, how could they have messed up a cruise? Like, they sold no tickets?
Forgot the boat.
Like, guys got drunk?
That's
Hello?
Yeah.
This is complete.
What the fuck were you expecting from the Bruise Cruise?
This might be a little off topic, but the first Def Leppard cruise last year, one of the guys in the opening band died on the cruise.
Oh.
And then the lead singer of Def Leppard lost his voice and couldn't perform.
Oh.
I don't think that happened on the Bruise Cruise.
Probably not,
my
but
guess.
that was a bad cruise, too.
It sounds like a bad cruise.
J.J. Dillon comes out.
Oh, man, I'm getting ready. I'm fixing to be mad.
He announces that referee Scott Dickinson, who is the guy who hates Saturn, he is suspended.
For 30 days.
30 days.
That's the payoff to this angle that I've had to watch for like 2 fucking months now. He's just sitting home. JJ says, I want him to sit at home and think about what he has done.
He's put in timeout.
Because why? He was a biased referee.
Yeah.
Okay, just remember that.
Okay. Then, this actually made me more mad. JJ says, I would really like to book Scott Hall versus Goldberg versus Bam Bam Bigelow in a triangle match. Well, go ahead. What's stopping you? And then by the end, I guess he did.
I guess he still has power, or he's been given his power back.
Then he announced the David Flair Eric Bischoff match that had already been announced 10 minutes ago.
Well, what he said was, my father, as you know, Gene, is sick in the hospital. But he loves Nitro. And I believe my father will be well on the road to recovery if he sees David win tonight and Bischoff gets his head shaved. Okay.
It's just your dad's life at stake.
That was weird. But he won.
Yeah.
Like,
Does Dad kick out, too?
I don't know.
They replayed the entire Bischoff Flair's segment. The whole thing.
Oh, here's where I lost it on
I was going to say, defend this show, Brian.
Okay, I can't defend this, but it's like one thing out of the show.
Okay.
Rey Mysterio's doing a promo backstage with Gene Okerlund. Gene says, Ray, why didn't you get rid of the LWO shirt when Rick asked you to take it off last week? Now, just in case none of you have been paying attention, or if you just started listening to this fucking show, okay? Eddie Guerrero forced Rey Mysterio against his will to join the LWO. In a mocking manner, he got him a 5XL shirt on Rey's 5'2" body to make him look like a child. He forced Rey to do this against his will. That's the storyline. Rey responds, I felt it wasn't time for me to take the shirt off. These are my colors, he says. This is my brown pride. Fuck you. Like, fuck you. Did I miss a year of shows?
No.
Did I miss one show?
No.
Did I miss anything?
No.
They challenged Lex Luger.
Yeah.
Why not?
Okay, the show turns around after that.
This was awful.
Not immediately after that, because first we actually had the match.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah, the match that could have been built up for weeks and months. First hour.
No.
That's not the problem, Craig.
You don't think so?
First of all, there's so much wrong with that.
Well, let's start
You
with...
want to build this as a thing, and then when fans pay to see it, you give them this?
Well, that's true.
How about we start with, this is a match with hairs on the line, the future of the company on the line, Eric Bischoff, Ric Flair, David Flair. An hour in.
Yeah.
It's not even the main event.
That was my
when they
complaint.
came out, I thought, okay, well, some stupid angle must take place, and then they do it again at the end of the show.
Sure.
Fuck no, this is it. They did it an hour in.
Yeah.
They have the most horrendous match you've ever seen in your life.
It's pretty bad.
It
like-
was so awful.
I know that I've said before that, Sharmella and Jenna was terrible, but like nowadays there's so many untrained idiots in the ring that it's worse now than it was back then. Fuck, was I wrong? This had to be the worst match I've ever seen. This was worse than Jen and Sharmell. Somebody on Twitter goes, have you ever given a minus 6-star rating? Well, if there had been a thing in 1999, this is it. This fucking match. David Flair. I can only imagine the sold-out match. I haven't gone back and watched it. How the fuck did David Flair do anything in that match? This guy stands there with his arms down and his chin out.
Yes.
And he just paces around the ring. Eric Bischoff is there in his fucking point karate stance. They dance around. Bischoff throws the goddamn worst kicks you've ever seen. He would not have. This is a cliche, but it's true. This fucking guy would not have cracked an egg. He hits David. David falls on his fucking ass. All of a sudden, David stands up, and I can't even. Thank God this is being filmed because I'm gonna recreate this punch. I want everyone to imagine this. Okay, make a fist, but now like open your fist so you actually have a flat fist. Okay, and now he didn't go forward. He didn't go down like a chop.
A chop?
He didn't even really do it like a haymaker. He like put his arm out to the side, and then his arm like went down like an arm wrestler, and he bonked Ric Flair on top of the head, or Bischoff. Bischoff falls on his ass, and he was pinned.
Yeah.
Yes.
What in the fuck? And then they reveal Randy Anderson slipped David Flair a roll of fucking quarters. On this fucking show where they just in storyline sent a referee home for 30 days so he could think about what he has done.
Yeah.
They immediately do an angle where a referee gives David Flair a fucking roll of quarters and he clonks Eric Bischoff and gets the win. I swear to God that was the worst match I've ever seen. Find me one worse. There's no way Survivor Jen and Charmel was worse than this. It's impossible. It is impossible that there's been a worse match than this in history.
Rebel and
No!
much worse.
No!
No.
I will go back and watch him. You're wrong.
No, you're wrong.
Objectively.
Shelly Martinez
No!
versus Rebel was worse.
Fuck you, Vinny. You're wrong.
Now I'll say this. I'll tell you this much. David Flair may have been worse than either Shelly or Rebel. That's possible. David
because
here,
Eric was any good in this match.
he was so much better than David.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yes.
What the hell's that saying? David Flair was the worst wrestler I've ever seen.
That there. Yes.
Okay, can we agree on that?
That way I can agree.
Okay.
When Brian says he had his hands
I'm sweating
down,
like a fucking pig.
when Brian says he has his hands down, he literally had his hands at his side.
He aggressively had his hands down.
Yeah.
It wasn't a guy that didn't have them up.
No.
He put them down.
He put them down. It was so weird. It's like he'd never been in a fight in his life.
For a fight.
Well, that's obvious.
He'd never been in a fight, never been in a boxing match, never seen a fight, never been in a wrestling match. He's standing there with his arms at his sides, leaning in with his face. This is a poor stance for anything.
He'd never been
Debate?
collegiate match. He'd probably never ran.
Collegiate? What? How would he even get out of junior high wrestling? Did you watch this match?
Of course.
How the fuck would he get into college wrestling?
I said he did not, Brian.
Oh my God.
So Eric's
I don't
throwing
think he's done anything athletic ever.
That's clear. So Eric's throwing his kicks. They're not very good. But he throws them, and David proceeds to stand there leaning in with his face. Still.
Didn't attempt to block a thing.
No, does not block or sell until eventually he just collapses. And then the ref passes him the coins. And you may have been too kind, if anything.
I was too kind.
If anything, to this punch.
That shot to the head, I was too kind.
Do you know what this was, Brian? This was a classic example of a whatever you're doing with your arm, stop it, punch.
Yes.
Yes.
Whatever it was that you did with your arm
Yes.
was way better than this.
Oh, I don't know. But this is...
Dude, if Richie would have been in the back and he would have saw that,
He would've hit the
he'd have
ring.
hit the ring.
Absolutely.
Sugar hold to hell.
He'd have been fired. He wouldn't have cared. He'd have hit the ring.
I don't think... I'm pretty sure David hit Eric. It wasn't like with his hand. It was like the middle of his arm. Just...
This was the worst match
And
ever.
then he pinned him.
And I like this show.
So the Horsemen come out. They all give Bischoff a buzz cut. And it was funny because he goes from having long black hair to short white hair.
And it was hilarious.
Amazing how that works.
They give him the clippers. They're not like shaving him bald.
No,
They're at like number 3 or something like
Basically,
that.
yeah.
So basically, he went from a guy with a horrible haircut and dye job
Yes.
to a very distinguished looking gentleman.
It's a much
It's like,
vast
how
improvement.
the fuck was this bad for you?
Even the announcers are like, hey, he looks better now.
This was amazing. But hey, you know what? A happy ending.
And then
And JJ's father on the road to recovery.
just all best wishes to Daddy Dylan. And then Bischoff comes to, he's picking his hair up off the mat and screaming, and then they randomly played Giant's Laugh from the Dungeon of Doom music.
I loved when he picked up his hair off the mat and tried to put it back on his head.
It never works.
Jericho is sucking up to J.J. Dillon backstage. He says, I beat Saturn last night, so Saturn has to wear a dress. And J.J. said, yeah, he did. And Jericho said, no, not past tense. I beat him. He has to wear a dress in perpetuity.
I think it was 30 days.
It was not one night.
No.
So he rereads the contract. JJ does. Saturn runs up walks up and rereads the contract. Jericho runs away, but is still shouting in the distance. And JJ says, man, I'm sorry, Saturn. I should have read this contract more closely. What a horrible GM.
Well, Vinny, to be fair, he just got rehired. It's possible a lot of this was done, before he...
I see. All right,
regime.
He was, that's fair.
Yeah, former regime.
They go to the announcers. The announcers say, that damn Chris Jericho found another loophole.
Yeah, loophole in the contract.
He put a clause in the contract, and his opponent and the company were too stupid to read it. That's not a loophole. Konnan comes out for a promo.
He split from the Wolfpack. They booted him out.
Yep. He declares Nash and Luger to be punk Mark Bustas.
Yes.
They're in cahoots.
He threatens a potential drive-by.
Yes.
You never know when me and my buddies might pull up next to you.
This is such a
like, what?
It's such a weird mix of literal threats of murder and just the silliest insults.
Yeah.
He called them punk Mark Busters, said they're in cahoots
Yes.
with Bischoff and Hogan. It's a whole crew of strawberries,
Threaten a drive-by.
threaten a drive-by, and then tells them to toss his salad and peel his potatoes.
Yeah.
I know what one of those is.
Tony's disgusted.
Do you know what it tastes to disgust Tony?
A lot.
So then Konnan left.
Usually more than this.
We had pics of Miss Elizabeth helping Luger beat Konnan at Sold Out. Speaking of Elizabeth, by the way, I realized that here in storyline they're not a couple anymore, but remember when Randy Savage made his big return?
Yeah,
2
what
weeks
the
ago?
hell was that all about?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, he showed up with
23.
Gorgeous
Permission.
George and has never been seen again.
Yeah. Great follow-up, guys. Mike Enos and Bobby Duncombe Jr. versus the Faces of Fear.
This
Okay,
match.
Brian,
Yeah? What do you want out of me?
are you sure that David Flair had the worst match on this show?
Oh, not even close, Vinny.
This
Listen,
was
I'm going
really
to put this
bad.
over a little bit, okay?
Why?
I'm going to tell you why.
How?
I watch 5 hours of first-run WWE every week and pay-per-views once a month. Everybody does the exact same match.
Yeah, to avoid matches like this.
Babyface shines, dive, commercial, heat during the break, come back, blah, 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 blah. Meng and Barbarian sell a little bit and then do whatever the fuck they want. Awesome.
No.
Now, granted, this was not one of their better matches.
No.
This was not a classic.
Well-
They ain't going to the Hall of Awesome today after this showing. But, I mean, come on. I've seen worse.
At least Flair and Bischoff was short.
Well, this was definitely not short. I'll give you that.
No. And at no point was it any good.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
I did not.
It wasn't bad.
Now, before we get to the match itself, I should
No,
add.
you're wrong. It was bad.
No!
It was extraordinarily
They're
bad.
savages. That's their gimmick. What do you want out of them? They had a savage match. They threw around big dudes, grunted.
Were you a big fan of the part where Meng threw a kick that Mike Enos didn't know was coming, so Mike didn't sell it, and Meng fell into the ring on accident? Was that the cool part?
No, but I liked it. They just kicked him again.
Yeah.
So I will say,
How about when Meng just grabbed Enos and gave him a pile driver? No build, no reason for it.
He did a stuff pile driver. Okay, here's what happened. Here's exactly what happened. Enos gives Barbarian a pile driver. We're 30 seconds into the match. Enos gives Barbarian a pile driver. He turns around. Meng does his kick. Enos collapses on Barbarian. It's a near fall. We're 30 seconds in.
Yeah.
Cool. There was another pile driver later. Hey, listen.
It goes on.
I've seen worse.
It's fucking forever. The crowd is just... They're cheering for the local sports team because they're very bored by this wrestling match. It breaks down into a four-way, and I do mean it broke down into a four-way. Here's where I said, end this fucking match right now. You got guys just rolling all over each other like a playing Pigpen or something. One of the worst tag team matches I've ever seen, I wrote.
Oh, get out of here.
Then they went to a split screen.
Vinny's
Get
not
out of
wrong.
here. Start watching Raw.
They went to a split screen to show Hogan arriving and seeing Bischoff's new haircut, and then thank the Lord above. The last 2.5 years of my life all paid off here when the NWO hit the ring for a double DQ to end this match.
Oh, you're horrible.
Appallingly bad. And by the way, this was supposed to be the first match in the first round of a tournament to crown new World Tag Team Champions.
Yeah.
Thank God nobody moved on.
Because
They can do it again.
Because we all forgot who was champion. Do you remember who was champion?
It was like Giant and Scott Hall or something.
Craig, who do you think it was?
Oh, it was Bagwell.
Was it still Judy Bagwell and
Bagwell.
Rick Steiner?
I don't remember. I think it might
There
have
was
been.
no mention of who the champions had been
Or
why
Rick
the titles were
Steiner and that
vacant.
other idiot.
Yeah, it was Rick Steiner
Chaos.
and Judy.
No, it was
no.
Kenny Chaos.
Everyone
Yeah, you're
forgot, so they just had a tournament.
Yeah, well, hey, cool.
So they-
Disco Inferno and Wrath.
No.
Oh,
Nash
I'm trying to
announces
move on.
after this beating, there will now be no tag team tournament. And if that means no more matches like this, great. Hogan promises that somebody's going to die, and apparently it's Ric Flair. Was it Super Brawl or Uncensored?
I think Super Brawl is next.
I keep forgetting. I wrote Uncensored throughout this.
February, Super Brawl.
All right, my mistake. Disco Inferno versus Wrath.
You know, the show was kind of bad. I guess it picked up there at the end.
Huh.
Hall comes out. Listen, it's Disco Inferno versus Wrath, okay?
Wrath's on a winning streak.
Hall comes out with a taser. And I'm like, God damn, they're going to beat Wrath. Hall is going to taser Wrath, and Disco's going to get the pin. Hall's out there. I'm waiting. I'm like, okay, here's a reversal. They're right by Hall. No, nothing happened. Goes on and on. Finally, Hall threatens Wrath. Wrath punches him. Wrath turns around, and Disco gives him the chart buster for the clean pin.
If anything, it's actually worse than you're making it sound,
I'm not sure.
because Scott Hall went to interfere, but he tripped climbing through the ropes into the ring.
Well, yeah. Geek of the Week.
Oh no.
January
one?
16th,
No.
1999. Wrath!
There's a much bigger geek on Raw.
I'm not sure. Oh, on Raw, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, so Hall and Disco hugged it. Disco actually is in the NWO now, and they played the Wolf Howl over his disco music.
You know, I would say that this was a disaster, but they already beat Wrath, so who cares?
But this is Disco.
Well, I know, but, like, if he'd been undefeated, this would have been really stupid, but who cares? They killed him. No one cared about him.
I was just trying to figure out through the entire match who, if either one, was the babyface.
Okay, now for real this time. This is where the show turned around.
You think so?
The Nitro girls were dancing. Oh, Brian is appalled at
Wow.
Craig's defiance.
I gasp.
The Nitro girls are dancing when Scott Steiner comes out to fuck them. You laugh.
That's exactly what happened.
That's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
There's a stated mission.
not
We'll
wrong.
get to more into that later, but that's basically what happened.
Vinny is not prone to subtlety.
No, I get to the point.
What subtlety? That's exactly what happened. Why would we be subtle about it? He wasn't.
No.
So Kimberly tries to pull the women to the back and just get out of here, and Steiner's sure to say, I beat your husband like a dog. They go to commercial, and they come back. Steiner and Bagwell in the ring. Steiner is still looking for somebody to fuck.
Yeah.
This man he may have taken the wrong uppers before the match. So he buries Saturn for being ugly and wearing a dress. The fans are chanting steroids the entire time. We have Scott Steiner.
I thought it was ironic. I just wrote about the geek of the week, and then Steiner comes out and he's talking about the freak of the week. So he said in his promo.
It's a whole line of
Yeah.
blank of the week we can do.
So who comes out but Saturn in a dress? Gets in the ring. Steiner
wasn't
cuts a
what he was
promo.
looking
Did you catch Buff's line? Because Buff is wearing a hat where it's got like a mask and like tentacles on top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Buff's line is, that dress looks almost as ridiculous as my hat.
Steiner calls him gay. Saturn attacks him. And they had a good match.
They had a fun
Yeah.
fight.
This was the best match on the show.
Yes.
What was better than this?
I like Jericho and Booker better.
No,
but,
this was way better.
This was for
This was
argument.
Steiner does a leapfrog.
Wow. You sold me.
I had some other things I was going to say. But
Some over the head, belly to belly suplexes.
I was gonna make
against
some
both men.
Suplexes and some cool fighting and Saturn flying.
I was going to make some comments about what's underneath that dress because Steiner did a mule kick and it wasn't a DQ.
Right.
But after what happened on Raw, I'm just going to save it
It's not worth the trouble
for
anymore.
now.
I'll be honest, my favorite part of this, they were in Columbus, Ohio, and Scott reaches into the crowd at one point. I figured it's Scott Steiner, he's clearly going to murder somebody. But what he did was, somebody passed him a University of Michigan hat.
That was awesome.
And Steiner, of course, is a Michigan alum. He puts the hat on, and everyone just hates him. That was the best part of this.
Yeah, and he worked at like 5 minutes with that thing
With
on
the
his
baseball
head.
cap on,
People
yeah.
are going nuts, are so mad at the guy. He
awesome.
sells great during the comeback. Goes for the DVD. Buff makes a save. Steiner gives Saturn an overhead belly-to-belly, sends him flying.
Just launched him.
Puts him in the recliner, and gets a clean submission. Well, the guy passed out.
Now, this match was awesome. Let me
match
remind
ruled.
you, Saturn was wearing a dress.
Yeah! And he put the dress over Steiner's head and punched him in the corner. Place goes nuts. It was great. This was awesome.
I did like when he flashed Steiner, but all he did was flash him his wrestling trunks.
Sure.
Okay.
It's the intent, Vinny.
I guess so. Nash, Luger, and Liz come out for a promo. They make fun of Konnan
For gassing out all
for
the time.
getting blown up every single... He did blow up in his promo earlier.
Lex Luger is
Yeah.
making fun of Konnan for his cardio.
Uh-huh.
And he's
right.
not wrong.
He's exactly
That's the
right.
other thing.
It's not unworthy. This is not a pot kettle black situation. Lex has much better cardio than Konnan.
Nash started out this promo. Yo, yo, yo. Let me speak on this. Oil of Olay.
Yes.
He's so clever.
It's kind of clever.
He's got all that time on the road to think of these jokes. So they say Conan's all heart, or excuse me, he had no heart and also no endurance. Lex moves on to Rey Mysterio. You're no bigger than my leg, he said.
And Liz snickered.
He promised to beat Ray's brains in and take his mask off, but if Ray would hand over his mask backstage, they would call the match off. Steiner.
Vinny, we're going to recreate this, okay?
What?
So,
Which one are you going to be?
That's a great question.
Steiner follows Kimberly into the Nitro girls' dressing room,
You can be Kimberly.
where he is looking to fuck first Kimberly and then the rest of the Nitro girls.
He doesn't make it clear.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's first.
The rest of you have to wait.
He says to the girls, you're next, but she's first.
Yeah.
Okay. So, normally he's like yelling and screaming and in a rage.
Yes.
Security shows up. You're going to play security, Vinny. Okay. And you're going to say, Mr. Steiner, you need to get out of here. What are you doing in here? Okay?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Mr. Steiner, you need to get out of here. What are you doing in here?
Sir, I've got a great body, and she needs me. Absolute, complete, utter sincerity.
Yes.
He's not angry.
No.
He's telling this guy, you don't get it.
He's reasoning with
I
you.
have a great body.
He attended a verbal
She
debate.
needs to fuck me. So can you please just get out of here so I can get this deed done? I cried with laughter at Scott Steiner here.
He was
He is the heel that believes everything that he said.
Yes.
He was not playing a heel.
he was speaking man to man
Yes.
with this fella. Listen, you're a man. You understand a man has needs.
I believe,
And he said it in a way where she knows this.
yeah. There's nothing objectable about what he was saying. It was a statement of fact.
I realize this sounds terrible that we're laughing about this here. But I mean, nothing happened, number one.
Yeah.
That's true.
And number two, just the idea of it is preposterous.
He tried to explain to them, listen, I beat her husband. Now I want to have
Her
sex
husband's
with
in Vegas.
Her husband's in Vegas.
We need to be fucking right
Yeah.
now. Like, what don't you get about this? Why are you trying to kick me out of here?
He told Kimberly, he says, Dallas Page is in Vegas. He's probably hooking up with another girl anyway.
He did say that too.
It's just incredible.
An amazing human.
He just utterly, sincerely believed all of his own bullshit.
Yes.
By the way, you single fellas, this doesn't work.
No!
Not even if you are Scott Steiner. And you are certainly not. Pics of Kidman.
Anyway, they kicked him out,
He did not get the fucker.
in case you were confused.
That's actually important. We should clarify that. He
Yes.
left frustrated.
Yeah. And she was not down with it.
No.
No.
She was not reluctant. She was not on the fence.
She didn't agree.
No. She made her feelings
She
very
didn't
clear.
see it his way.
She did not. Wouldn't listen to reason. Pics of Kidman retaining the Cruiserweight title in a 4-way at the pay-per-view. I do Psychosis versus Juventud.
Now, this was the best match on the show.
No.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
The one where they did a near fall and the crowd was chanting boring? That sounds great.
This
I had the sound off.
these
I
guys
don't know.
did some stuff.
That's what I
and-
wrote. They did some stuff.
No, I
Yep.
love this match.
They did some stuff. The fans didn't care. There were a couple of botched spots.
Both guys got crotched on the ropes.
Yeah. It was a match for the sake of it with a bunch of moves.
This match was for the number 1 contendership to the Cruiserweight title, and they put over
Well,
Psychosis
someone should have told
clean.
the fans that.
Put the Psychosis over clean and strong in this match.
Didn't like it.
I wrote some things
Fine.
such as, dudes just kept on going. Oh my God, they just kept going. There have been some very bad matches in the show. And then Psychosis did a top rope gourd buster and a Tijuana jam for the win. I will say the fans did pop for the finish. That is true. Lex versus Rey Mysterio.
Lex does his promo. He says, Ray, why did you come out with that mask and shirt on? I thought I told you. Unmask and take off that stupid shirt. If you do, I'll let you live. And he adds, you're a cute little wrestler.
He did say that.
So Ray refused. Lex beat him up. They had a fine little match.
It was...
Luger beat him up, gave him some stuff, beat him up, gave him some stuff.
Ray didn't do lucha. He didn't do head scissors and arm drags and all that kind of stuff. He just did flying kicks and elbows.
And you know what? I hate all of the DQs we see on these shows. We make fun of him every week. But when Ray finally makes his last comeback, and he's running wild on giant Lex Luger, and Kevin Nash just runs in and attacks Ray for the DQ to save Lex, that was real, legit, honest-to-God heat.
Yeah.
These fans were angry. He was about to get him! That's a real DQ.
So they hit him with the power bomb with the torture rack. They were going for his mask when Konnan ran out with a chair to clean house. They showed DDP on location in Las Vegas, Nevada, to announce the debut of the Nitro Grill at the Excalibur. And yes, I did eat there once.
Wow.
I have a shot glass from there. I don't drink.
I need to brag about it.
It was cheap.
Scott Hall versus Bam Bigelow versus Goldberg. Oh, here's right. What about Savage? Disco's out there in Scott Hall's corner. So
You missed another Steiner segment.
Yeah, Steiner's trying to get Kimberly again.
He's in the bathroom this time.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell it is about Nitro that makes my show, it buffers on my computer. And I thought for a minute maybe it's because it's 2 hours long. I tried restarting.
2.5.
2.5, whatever it is. I saw very little of this match.
Well, you missed nothing. It was a typical three-way. Goldberg goes for the jackhammer on Bigelow. Hall breaks it up. Goldberg jackhammers Hall. NWO hits the ring.
Okay.
Ref
I saw the
waves
finish.
off. No contest here in this triangle match.
Yes.
And then NWO Hollywood is out. Flair comes out. Flair sprints after everybody, and the show ends.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than it reads. Not much better.
It was pointless.
This wasn't a great show.
Someone needs to go back.
It was better than last week.
Yes. That
And
I
the
agree
week
with.
before.
Yeah, it was better than
My standards are so low now for Nitro.
Nitro's been very bad. Someone needs to go back and tally what the rate of was DQ finishes the main event of Nitro. It's got to be 80%.
Dude, 80%. It's got to be like 98%. I can't remember one.
There's not many.
Except when Goldberg beat Hogan.
I was
That's
gonna say,
like
that
the
was the
last
last
one I
one.
can remember. That was in July.
Yeah.
You got your...
Oh, yeah.
I have my
Jeremy
report
Graham.
ready to go. Thank you, Craig, for reminding me.
Yep.
Well, let's go.
The finishes on this show were clean pin. Pin after a guy hit a guy with a roll of coins in the worst match of the hour. DQ when the NWO hit the ring to put a stop to the worst tag team match of 1999.
Get out of here.
Pin after failed interference by a guy with a taser. Submission after interference. DQ due to run-in for no reason. DQ due to gang run-in in a freeway.
Man. At least there was no drive-by yet.
Well, not yet.
been threatened.
You got to build to that.
Yeah.
WCW
We just started here.
Monday Nitro 176, January 25th, 1999. Show opened with clips from Thunder.
Let's start by saying, by the way, this fucking show was so bad for 45 minutes. It was so horrible for the first 45 minutes.
Yeah.
As soon as Scott Hall and Bam Bigelow came out and actually wrestled in a match for 10 straight minutes, the show totally turned around.
Yes.
Lo and behold, if you give people wrestling on a wrestling show, it's a better show. But man, the first 45 minutes where they did nothing but 9 million segments and one shitty match.
I will say it was so bad it made me laugh. So that's a good kind of bad, but it was terrible.
Okay.
For example, this clip from Thunder. Vincent, best known as Virgil in WWF, Vincent ever since he's been in WCW, he is amongst the NWO B team. Apparently he has taken over a leadership role with the B team.
Yeah, where the hell did this come from?
I don't know.
That was how the show started. Clips from Thunder of Vincent running the show.
Yes, and he says, everyone, I no longer want to be known as Vincent. And I'm eagerly awaiting what his new name is going to be. And he says, I want to be known as Vince.
Yes.
And there's a pause. And he says, Vince is a good name. Can't argue with that.
And Vinny was nodding feverishly.
Yes. So everyone left. He tried and failed to drink a glass full of raw eggs that had been sitting in this locker for who knows how long.
Yeah, this was a total takeoff of Vince's training video.
Sure.
I see.
On Raw, yeah.
That's it. And he looks up at the camera, or he looks into the corner and says, hey, there's a camera, we're being filmed. And he starts tapping at it and says, we're being filmed. It's like this. He does this over and over again.
Yeah.
So
Vinny is not acting right here. He's just recapping what happened.
Yeah.
Your acting is 1,000 times better than Vince.
Yeah.
This was the fucking worst acting I've ever seen. And you know what? I've said that on Raw lately. Like, there's been some fucking bad acting on Raw. But the difference is, this is horribly acted improv. And Raw is horribly acted scripted. And I'm not sure which is worse.
Well, this is worse because he kept looking into the camera. Hey, we're being filmed.
Craig, you're doing too well.
We're being filmed.
less energy.
Less energy. And
Sleep your eyelids.
We're being filmed.
It was
There you
so
go.
bad.
Better. So
We're being filmed.
Don't touch anything.
And it went on.
now we can
and
scare
on
Bryan
and
whenever we
on.
want.
Dude.
So they cut to the limousine where the Wolf Pack has nothing better to do than to watch the spy cam of the B-teamers. And they are disgusted at what a geek Vince is.
People will say the same thing when they see us.
Well, yeah. So we have clips of Kurt Hennig and Stevie Ray and the rest of the B-teamers saying they can't trust Hogan or Nash. They all made fun of Stevie Ray's $500 shirt. He vowed to get them, apparently referring to Hogan and Nash. Ric Flair was at the merchandise table watching Eric Bischoff work.
Eric's got a black wig on under his hat because he's embarrassed that he got his head shaved. Just the worst wig you've ever seen.
And as we noted, his haircut is a vast improvement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Flair orders Bischoff to go sell merchandise in the arena. Clips of Scott Steiner trying to get laid last week. And then DDP on Thunder warning Scott to stay away from his wife because sometimes in this business, it gets real fast.
You know, we talked about Steiner and Kimberly a lot last week, but we actually I was thinking about this the other day. So, the way we described it, Steiner was trying to talk sense into the security guard, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and he was trying to say, I've got a great body. Mm-hmm. She needs to fuck me.
Those were his two arguments.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Craig,
Yes.
you said he's trying to talk to the guy man to man.
Absolutely.
I'm a guy, I've got needs.
Absolutely.
Okay, the more I thought about it, the more you're wrong.
Okay.
What he was saying was, she has needs. Mm-hmm. I am here to do her a favor. That was the whole point of this. Like, I'm sure that he was interested as well. But his argument was,
You think?
I have a great body. She needs me.
Yeah.
I'm here to help. Why are you kicking me out? It's even more preposterous than we explained last week. And yes, I thought about this a lot.
It's a little disturbing.
Yeah.
Don't you have any hobbies?
Not the act, but, you know.
Stevie Ray told the B-teamers, you wait in the limo, I'll go take care of Hogan. And there wasn't... whatever.
We'll get to it.
Al Green versus Disco Inferno.
Al Green against the Disco Inferno.
Yeah.
They got one match in the first hour.
This is it.
This is what they came up with.
It exceeded my very low expectations.
Yeah, it was fine. Disco's a good baby face. Al Green was
A good power guy.
competitive.
Yeah.
It was a fine wrestling match. Good finish. Chart buster. Everybody went crazy for Disco. How could you see this as a loss?
It was actually even better because, as noted, Al was a big, strong guy. He's pressing Disco over his head, and he beat Disco for a few minutes. But then at the end, Disco realizes he's slow. And so he ducks like 3 clotheslines in a row and then hits the chart buster. So he found an advantage and exploited it. So good for Disco.
It's funny, when you add a wolf howling to Disco's music, he gets more popular.
I mean, he worked as a great baby face. He should get cheered.
Well, when they
And
added
these
the
are
wolf,
real wrestling fans.
when they added the wolf howl to his Disco Inferno music, people
Sure.
popped.
So at this point, Tony Schiavone is frantically trying to determine what is the next segment. And he introduces like 3 different things.
Oh my gosh.
And finally go back to, I think, number 2. They're at the airport. The B-teamers. And yes, this is our 4th segment with the B-teamers in the first like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
They are
And
pissed
my God, what a fucking payoff, by the way.
They're pissed off. They get Ford Tauruses and not limousines.
Yeah.
So they're standing there arguing, this is bullshit. They get a limo. Why don't we get a limo? And finally, Scott Norton spots an opening and just shouts, I got shotgun! And he goes running off.
And then they fight for shotgun.
They fight for shotgun.
Yes. So Stevie is telling everybody, I am going to go give Hulk Hogan a piece of my mind.
Yes.
So the NWO arrives in their Learjet. They're all acting cool in the jet.
They had a camera in the Learjet to shoot 5 seconds of video.
Yes. Nash gets out. Hall slaps his ass. Go get him, Tiger. So they get out. Stevie walks up to them and immediately throws Kurt Hennig under the bus.
Stooge.
Howled with laughter. That was somewhat of a payoff. So the NWO goes, and the B team is all hanging out, okay? All they know is Stevie was going to go give Hulk a piece of his mind.
Yes.
Okay. So the B team sees the NWO coming.
The cool kids.
Hennig knows shit's about to go down. And so he responds. He's in the back seat. He sees the NWO coming. He suddenly grabs Norton around the neck, and he goes, I got him!
Was it Norton or Vincent?
I think it was Norton.
Whoever's in the front seat.
All that matters is he thought he was smart.
Yeah.
He was wrong.
No.
He's the only one whose ass they beat. What about Vincent?
There were 2 guys. They'll talk about that in a minute. There were 2 guys, as we later learned, who were not wearing the NWO shirts anymore. Stevie Ray bought a $500 shirt.
Yes.
Which is nicer than t-shirts. He's not wearing that. Hennig just outright says he doesn't trust anyone. Now, he didn't say that to their face, but they knew it. So they beat Hennig up for not wearing an NWO t-shirt.
Yeah, he's out.
And first, the B-teamers protest, but Hogan convinces them it's the right thing to do by saying, quote, it's just business. So they say, okay, and they all beat up their buddy, too. Everyone beats up Hennig, leaves him lying on the tarmac.
And as they're walking away, Scott Hall turns and mutters, make sure Sting gets his Taurus back.
I didn't catch that. That's awesome.
So good. Now, listen. This show started with Vincent acting like he was running the show and discovering a hidden camera. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why didn't they beat his ass? Wasn't that how the entire show started?
They actually said this guy's got a little bit of ingenuity.
Is that what they said?
He's got something because he was attention to detail.
We will get into what else happened on Thunder, but there are some things he did that outright defied their orders.
Yeah.
But they hugged him and they said he was cool. Did we mention, by the way, that when Hulk Hogan is approaching the B-teamers, he shouts, "Yo, Holmes, what's up?" I think that's an important detail to include.
Holmes.
Yo, Holmes.
Yo, Holmes.
So they all leave. The limousine pulls away, and the guys in the B-teamers. Norton actually says to Stevie, welcome back to the B-team. And they're bitching about their Tauruses, and they drive away. All right, now we're in the building.
More
with the NWO.
They're in their locker room.
The Wolf Pack and their fanny packs are walking through the building. They're saying things to imaginary women down the hallways. No autographs, ladies. They go into their locker room. They tell Stevie to put on the black and white t-shirt instead of his $500 shirt. There's 14 guys in here jibber-jabbering at once. And the last thing you hear is Hulk Hogan say, Kurt Hennig sucks.
So Stevie is there in his $500 shirt. They're like, you got to wear an NWO shirt. Take that thing off. They give him an NWO shirt. He clearly does not want to take off his $500 shirt. But he knows if he doesn't, he's going to get his ass handed to him. So he starts to go into the bathroom to change his shirt. Now, granted, Liz was in there.
Sure.
But really? And as he's leaving, they bury him for his slacks as well.
At this point, Bam Bigelow brings a ladder down to the ring. And he cuts a promo. And it's bad.
Oh, my God.
He's stumbling over everything. He's mumbling a lot, tripping over his own words. He says he came to WCW to take out Goldberg, and he's still going to do that, but first he must take out the obstacle that is Scott Hall. Because Scott Hall zapped him with the taser a couple times. So he challenges Hall to a ladder match with a stun gun hanging above the string.
Did we just see that?
Yes, actually. This is
Okay.
the main event of Sold Out
Yes.
with Bam Bigelow replacing Goldberg.
So they cut to the NWO locker room, and he's doing a promo, and on the split screen, there's the NWO. Everybody's talking at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not like in the middle of a match they go to a talking segment. They go to a talking segment in the middle of a talking segment. So Bigelow's bumbling his way through this promo. You can't understand a word he's saying. NWO is bumbling their way through a promo. You can't hear anything they're saying. In the middle of it, you can make out Scott Hall. They tell Scott Hall he's calling you out. And he wants you in a ladder match. Hall says, and I quote, "Can you imagine the hole I'm going to make?" Because he's fat.
Yeah.
He's going to knock him off the ladder, giant hole in the middle of the ring. And that's it.
That was the end.
That's it. I guess that was him accepting the challenge. I looked at all my notes because I was expecting to tell you what else happened, and then I realized that's fucking all that happened.
That's all that happened.
He made fun of him for being fat.
They made fun of him for being fat. They made fun of him for cutting a horrible promo, and the thing ended.
Oh, that's right, the horrible promo.
Yeah. We had a way too long bit where Eric Bischoff is fucking up customers' orders and stiffing them money. Just went on forever.
Stupid.
Mean Gene calls out Ric Flair for a promo.
Excuse me, another promo?
More talking.
Oh, another segment? Okay.
And this time, though the NWO is not on screen, they are still the topic being discussed. So Flair says on Thunder they could have ended Horus's life.
They could have taken his life.
Yeah.
But he says, we sent him back in one piece.
That's right.
Okay, now I didn't see Thunder, but like I saw Horus on the show, not selling a goddamn thing,
No,
and
nowhere
clearly
for it.
100%. I can only imagine the beating they gave him on that show.
Moved on to Bret Hart and said at Super Brawl he would defend the world title,
Yes.
and which Gene quickly corrected to the U.S. title, against somebody WCW picked. And tonight he'd be wrestling Booker T.
A match already announced earlier.
Yes. Flair said there would be a World Tag Team Tournament match in the show, and to ensure the NWO did not interfere, there would be a human wall of wrestlers around the ring.
Yeah. Now, he didn't mention who was in the match. That was unimportant. Only the fact that we're going to have a match, and there will be a human wall around the ring.
Yeah. Really, the only thing he offered was, will the NWO come out to try and break this up?
Yeah.
And finally, in the main event, he told Hogan, go find two partners to face me, Chris Benoit, and Steve McMichael in a trios match.
It was a great promo.
That was a Ric Flair promo. Scott Dickinson is the suspended ref who was suspended for screwing
I
Saturn.
could not believe my eyes. It's still going.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the front row.
He was incognito. He was
He
in
was?
disguise. He was wearing a hat.
So he was
trying
not wearing a ref shirt, so he was incognito.
Absolutely.
There was
It's
a
not like he was wearing
camera
a ski mask.
It's Scott Dickinson.
He's
What-
right there in the front row with a camera right on his face.
much closer than these cameras are.
Yeah.
My point is that he didn't have to put a hat on to be unrecognizable. Nobody
Oh,
recognized
I
him.
recognized him immediately. Immediately!
Clips of Scott Hall tasing Bam Bam at Sold Out. And then Scott Hall and Disco came out with a ladder. And Scott Hall accepted the challenge, and this took like 10 minutes.
He says, I accept your challenge. It will not be against Disco Inferno. I don't know why he threw that in.
He was drunk.
It will be against the king of the ladder matches, the man who is more handsome than 10 movie stars, Scott Hall. And women cheered, and he was so happy. The man who is more handsome than 10 movie stars.
Fooled him.
You got him.
So we had Scott Hall versus Bam Bam Bigelow in a ladder match.
Okay. This was not Triple H versus, or I'm sorry, Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon.
No.
But it was not bad.
No.
Do you know what this
fine.
was? It was Razor Ramon stealing spots from Shawn Michaels.
Sure.
It was funny.
It was a 1998-1999 ladder match where it was not all about stunts.
No.
It was about, let's have a wrestling match, and there will be a ladder involved. It was good.
It was a good match. And they had plenty of time.
Except, and this is not their fault,
No.
Bigelow sets a ladder up in the corner. He's going to throw Scott Hall into the ladder. He throws him across, there's a reversal or whatever, and Bigelow runs right into the middle. And Mike Tenay says, Bigelow ran right into the steel.
Oh, jeez.
Fucking Larry fucking motherfucking Zbyszko
Yes.
says
Let me
aluminum.
not steel, which is more powerful than
so
aluminum.
pissed.
He brought the
Craig,
danger down.
Craig, please. You don't even need to say anything. Tanay says he threw him right into the steel, and Larry says aluminum.
It's not that.
Thank
bad.
you for the silence that I was needing after I made that statement.
In
right
other
there.
words, it's not that bad.
And then they go back to Tony, who has to say, still very hard.
Well, he's not wrong.
I like when they're hitting each other with a ladder. These big 300-pound dudes are slamming each other with it. And
Can wait a second, Vinny. Can Larry put anything over?
Well,
this was
allow
not
me.
even luchadors.
I'm going to add something to your argument here.
These were giant fucking men
Yeah.
running into a ladder, and all he can think about is making sure you know it ain't a steel ladder.
Right.
It's aluminum.
Well, to that point,
They're
Brian,
not that tough.
the ladder is getting broken and banged up, and Shivani and Tanay start to wonder: will these very large people be able to claim it? They say we can't have this ladder getting damaged, and Larry says, "Oh, they're only $100."
Why is he employed? I was so
To piss
fucking
off
furious
you.
here. Now, granted, Michael Cole's way dumber on the Raw shows we'll get to, but this was really fucking dumb. And I might add, you know who's not doing commentary still in 2018? Larry Zbyszko. But
true.
Cole is.
That's true.
So who's the real idiot here?
Us for watching. So, what I thought got you so angry is that they're doing this ladder match.
I'm only angry for one reason.
Bam Bam gets the taser. Disco Inferno, who had been injected, runs back out, gives Scott Hall a
He'd been
taser.
injected?
Did I say that?
Ejected.
Ejected. Thank
Yes.
you.
Either way.
I don't know what he did backstage. He returns. He gives Scott Hall a taser.
Excuse me. Wait a second.
Yeah.
He came back with a second taser?
That's right.
And he gave it to Hall?
Yeah.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
Would have
So
done that earlier.
you would think at any point. So Bigelow and Hall are facing off with these tasers like they're cowboys at high noon. And Goldberg runs out to kill them. He spears them both, and suddenly it's a disqualification.
That, I swear to God, of all the things, that didn't bother me. You know what bothered me more than the fact that it was a DQ?
Larry Zbyszko.
Well, besides Larry. So they're both there with their tasers, and Goldberg comes out, and this place loses their shit.
Yep.
Truth.
Stone Cold Steve Austin may as well have come out. Goldberg comes out. He clotheslines both men. He has a taser in each hand. He starts zapping both guys. The place is fucking going wild. And immediately Norton cuts him off. They couldn't even let Goldberg run wild for like 15 seconds or 30 seconds. The fans, all they wanted to do was see Goldberg kill these two guys. The moment he laid his hands on him, Norton has to come in to get the heat.
Well, in their defense, I will say Goldberg was coming out later.
And they did pay it off later. But
Yeah, they
still, I
had set
couldn't
up a
even
match for
believe it.
later.
In a notorious, infamous moment, Mean Gene interviews Bret Hart backstage. Bret doesn't know why Rick's holding a grudge against him. Had a grudge since he came into the company. Says he can make me wrestle Booker T tonight, but Booker T will not get a title shot because he's a loser. He's going to break him into pieces. And he says, this guy does not deserve a title shot, but as a U.S. champion, I've been watching the competition, and do you know who does deserve a title shot? El Dandy. And Mean Gene starts to question and protest, and Bret looks at Gene with a scowl and just asks, who are you to doubt El Dandy?
You know, there's a very, very famous quote. Who are you to doubt El Dandy? People have been talking about this quote now for 19 years. Bret's delivery was unbelievable. But you know what people aren't talking about that they should?
Yes.
When Gene questioned El Dandy, Bret says, who are you to doubt El Dandy? Gene is still questioning him, so Bret says, well, how about hypnosis instead?
Right.
Gene has to explain it's psychosis.
That was better than El Dandy.
It was!
Absolutely.
Why was everybody talking about El Dandy when you had the hypnosis line in there?
And why have we never had a wrestler with a hypnosis gimmick?
Who was the
We
guy?
have.
Ophidian.
Who?
The guy from Chikara.
There's Chikara, but there was also, who was that? They had a guy in WWF for a while that was going to do that. Spellbinder or whatever.
Yeah, the magician who made like one appearance.
Yeah.
You talking about the Cobra in Chikara?
He's one
Yeah,
too.
he hypnotized the entire locker room.
I'm talking a guy with a watch You know?
He did this with his hands. He didn't
No,
need a
no,
watch.
no, no. He needs a watch.
Get out of here, you two.
A pocket watch.
Quit ruining my show.
Why should we stop now?
He also mentions that Malenko has a bad ankle, and he scoffs the idea that he has a bad ankle because Malenko has never had a groin pull the likes of this, the likes of which nobody has ever seen, he says.
So the last minute of this, they're just talking over each other, and Gene's trying to be the voice of reason, and Brett's not having any of it. And this may be a coincidence, but I was struck how much this was Nitro's version of Hockey Night in Canada, and Mean Gene was Ron McClane, and Bret Hart was playing Don Cherry without the funny jacket. It was the exact same scene. Everyone, Brian, knows what I'm talking about except you.
We're American. We don't like hockey.
So it's time for the human wall of wrestlers, or whatever the hell Flair said, surrounding the ring for the next match. Every bottom of the roster geek you can think of just comes out and stands there.
So they all come out. Tony says, it looks like a lumberjack match.
It did.
It did.
It's like, maybe because it fucking is a lumberjack match. No matter what Flair called it, because he forgot. It's Finlay and Dave Taylor versus Meng and the Barbarian.
Tag team mean guy match.
It was fun.
This was two technical grapplers versus two bears. And everything that I talked about last week, we saw again here. Meng and Barbarian every now and then would give him something, and then they just do whatever the hell they wanted.
Yep.
There was no heat. There was no story.
No.
It was just like, we'll beat the shit out of you. You beat the shit out of us.
Mm-hmm.
We'll beat the shit out of you. You beat the shit out of us. And then we're going to do the old backdrop into a powerbomb spot using nothing but pure power, no technique whatsoever.
Zero.
And win the match. It's fucking great.
It was awesome.
Yes.
This match ruled. And yes, the Faces of Fear did win. And no, the Lumberjacks never did anything. If you're waiting to see the NWO come out, you never got it.
They never even pushed other wrestlers back into the ring.
I think they did once.
There was one, and it was specific because Hugh Morris is still technically in the same stable as the Faces of Fear. So one time we threw Finlay back in.
I didn't like that. I mean, as much as I love this, it went a little long because shortly before the finish, the Lumberjacks are just chatting with the fans. They've gotten bored. They're done.
Well, they had nothing to do and no purpose in the end.
No.
They probably all just wanted to shower and get changed and leave. They had to come out here in their gear for no reason for 5 minutes and go back. More clips from Thunder. So you will recall the NWO is pissed off that WCW is restarting a tag team division and trying to have a tournament. So Vince's response to this is to put together an NWO team and put them in the tournament. It's Horus and Bryan Adams.
Oh, my God.
Versus Chavo Guerrero Jr. and
Christ.
Kidman. So to review, the first match of this tournament ended in a draw when the NWO killed everyone. The second match is this match we're watching here on Thunder, and the third match was the Lumberjack match we just saw.
Wrestling's very different nowadays. I watched the clips of this match. It's like Kidman's in there, and Bryan Adams, and Horace Hogan. Who was the other guy?
Chavo.
Oh, God, Chavo. Jesus Christ. This was like every tag match that Buddy and I did with two giant lugs. Just you, Vinny. You and who else?
Rugged Rod or
Rugged Rod.
Big
That's
Sid.
exactly what this was. Like, Buddy's determined to do some spots. I just want to idiot-proof it. And he's got something wacky, like Kidman tries a fucking Hurricane Rana on Bryan Adams. Who in the fuck came up with that idea? And why'd you do it? It's all fucked up. Kidman lands on his head. Bryan Adams bumps an hour too late. Can't even do a forward roll. I'm just like, look at you guys. Look at you out here doing this match. Someone booked this.
Yeah.
And then you guys did it.
Vince booked it.
Jesus. So bad.
So eventually Adams pinned Kidman after Vince interfered with the slapjack. We had more from Thunder. It was Saturn in a dress wrestling Al Green. That's all I wrote. Did anything else happen?
Al Green's getting some work.
He is. Norman Smiley versus Saturn.
Yes.
Every so often when you're watching something and your family wanders into the room and you're embarrassed about what's on the TV, this is only overshadowed by being short on time and watching some wrestling at your lunch table at work, and one of your coworkers comes up behind you and, is that guy wearing a dress?
Craig, I don't know about your household, but I'd have Whitney walk in on this match 1,000 times before I'd have her walk in on Val Venus getting in the shower with Ryan Shamrock.
See, that would be okay at my shop.
fast-forwarded through that because I knew Tony was coming in.
Yeah.
This was just a guy in a dress having a good match.
Yeah, it was a
Kind
good
of.
match.
So they did.
Saturn's having way better matches in a dress than he was in his gear. So
Yes.
I'm fine with him wrestling in a dress forever.
They're doing something with him.
Yeah.
him in a dress.
No, the matches are better.
I know, that's what I'm saying. He's motivated.
That's too. Yeah, I don't know why.
Because he's in a dress.
I mean,
Before the match began, after the
found his
entrances.
muse.
Yes. It's
Whatever,
himself, apparently.
dude.
They cut backstage where security is outside the Nitro Girls locker room to make sure Scott Steiner doesn't get in. One of these dudes has the sweetest mullet of the year. And by year, I remind you, 1999. Mullets were not cool anymore.
Nope.
So Norman and Saturn had this fun match. The big wiggle dance is very over to the point where Norman can tease it and the fans will pop and the announcers will pop, but he doesn't deliver and they're left waiting for more.
more wiggle.
More wiggle. So eventually he does the dance. This only serves to infuriate Saturn, who makes this big comeback.
No.
I'm sorry, I'm getting
Vinny,
ahead.
please.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
He bends Saturn over in the ropes.
That happened next, yeah.
Hikes his dress up.
Yes.
And starts to do the big wiggle right behind him.
He did.
This does, in fact, infuriate Saturn.
Yes. I glossed over that. My bad. So, it infuriated him so badly, he beat him up for 2 minutes, hit the DVD, and won.
Yeah.
It's so refreshing but weird to see matches where there's not 87 near falls and 200 cutoffs.
No.
A guy made his comeback, he hit his move, he got a pin.
And the fans were so into Saturn in a dress.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how long he wears the dress, I forget, but I hope it's years. This is way better. I hope it's not just 30 days. He needs to do the promo after 30 days and just go, my career's turned around. I'm not taking this off.
I'm selling Saturn dresses now. Probably could have.
It's funny, too. They had to cut to a wide shot because he had been busted open, like, probably in a match a couple days ago. And
Yes, he had a
had a
bandage on his
bandage on his head, and it came off, and he's bleeding all over the place in a dress.
Well,
Oh, my God. Gene interviews fucking
This.
Scott Dickinson.
like this only went like 30 or 40 seconds, but it was so
Oh,
bad.
my God. No, it didn't. It
Felt
was way
longer.
longer than that. Here's the deal, everybody. How many referees do you think there were in WCW?
A dozen.
They chose the one guy who cannot string a sentence together. Really? They didn't have one referee that could talk that they could have done this storyline with? Charles Robinson? Fucking Nick Patrick again? Scott Dickinson's out here bumbling his way through. I don't even know what he was talking about. He's mad that he got suspended. He's upset at J.J. Dillon, and he says it's bogus. That's all he had to say. He goes on, mumbling through this and that.
Has there ever been a good angle with a referee? Like Danny Davis, maybe the best one.
Well, the Andre the Giant and the Twins.
Patrick had his moments.
The Hebners.
Andre and the Hebners, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the answer is yes. On rare occasions, there have been good ones.
Sure.
Okay.
Sean in his shorts. No?
Bret Hart versus Booker T.
This was a good match.
Well, sure.
This is the best part of this match. Bret works over his leg. Bret goes for the figure 4 leg lock. Booker T is selling and selling. And he raises his hand and he goes to turn it over. And right in the middle of the reversal,
Yep.
fans will be right back. They fucking go to commercial.
Well,
I'm gobsmacked. So then, what apparently happened based on what I saw, Bret found out they went to the commercial in the middle of the reversal. So he proceeded to put it back on, leave it on during the commercial, and then when they came back, he had Booker reverse it again.
Smart guy.
And then he just went on with his match.
when you don't have the obvious cue of a guy doing a dive and Michael Cole saying Raw rolls on, sometimes you gotta go to break. You just gotta. So it was good. It did go too long. And eventually, it went too long, especially for the payoff, because the payoff was Bret tries to use his belt. Booker cuts him off. They go back and forth a bit. Booker's choking with cables. The ref gets the cable out of the ring. This lets Bret hit a belt shot and get the win. That was too lame to wait 15 minutes for.
Yeah, but the problem, Vinny, is you're watching this through the eyes of a guy who's seen so many bullshit finishes, especially on this show, that this sucked. Like, if you break it down in Bret Hart's mind, he's a heel, and this was a great old-school heel finish.
Had to cheat to win. That's fine. It could have been done in
And a logical way to do it.
It could have been in 8 minutes instead of 15.
Well, yeah.
That's all I'm saying. By the way, is Bret in the NWO right now? Does anyone
Fuck
know?
if I know. No one knows.
I don't think so.
Okay, he just faded out. And they didn't have to beat his ass. He just left. Scott Norton versus Goldberg.
This match was awesome.
Everything I want in a pro wrestling match.
It was fun.
Two big, scary monsters wailing each other and throwing each other through the air. That's all I want. So they're outside. They're fighting and punching and kicking and spitting and snarling. And they go for an Irish whip spot, and it gets hopelessly mangled. Everything goes wrong.
I don't know what went wrong, though.
Everything. I don't even know what they were trying.
I don't know where they were aiming.
I don't either.
This is the strength of Goldberg.
Basically.
You never know what's going to happen. And what's not going to happen.
I'm going to throw him into the bleachers over there.
He may have been trying to throw him through the roof. He may have been trying to throw him straight up. Regardless, it gets fucked up. There's this instant where they freeze, and then they just start pounding on each other, and it gets better.
Yes.
I love this match. They get in the ring. Norton tries a powerbomb. Goldberg escapes, falls down, pops up, hits a spear of death, and a jackhammer for the win. I know Goldberg's not actually the best wrestler ever, but there's no one who has better sloppy matches.
But that's the whole key.
Yes.
Like anybody else, if you would have done, I go for a power bomb, you do the Kidman flip out and land on your feet, and they fall down, the crowd would have been all over them.
Yes.
Not Goldberg. Goldberg's not supposed to be pretty.
No.
He falls down all the time.
That is a good point.
He falls down, he jumps up, he spears the shit out of this guy, he jackhammers him, he pins him. There was not one fan who booed Goldberg for falling down.
Absolutely not.
They loved every single... This was one of the 5 longest matches in Goldberg's television career, I think.
This went like 5 minutes.
Longer.
Yeah.
They had a long, mean guy, ass-kicking match.
Think of beauty.
It was so great.
So the B teamers run out one by one to attack and get killed like it's a kung fu movie. And speaking of kung fu movies, who should hit the ring when it's all said and done? But Chuck Norris, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Herschel Walker, and Brett Hull. And Brian, as you noted,
Yes.
you've got a pro wrestler, a pro hockey player,
A pro wrestler who owns a kickboxing gym.
who fights in fighting gloves. You got a hockey player who's getting beat up 80 days a year for a decade. You got 2 movie stars whose whole career is built on kicking people. And the one guy who actually did an MMA fight was the football player.
Yeah. Chuck Norris, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Goldberg, and Herschel Walker.
And
One
Brett
of
Hull.
them did MMA. And it was fucking Herschel Walker.
Yes.
All I know is this is where Sly Stallone got the
And
idea.
he's undefeated.
This is where Sly got the idea for the Expendables.
It might be. Actually. I guess 3 of them did the movie. Nitro girls come out to dance. Scott Steiner comes out to watch from the announce desk. He scares the announcers, but nothing comes of it.
Yeah, he was 50 feet away by law.
Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Steiner versus Ric Flair, Chris Benoit, and Steve McMichael.
What a match.
Well, there's a promo first where Scott claims Kimberly's been flirting with him, and since DDP can't satisfy his hooch, he's the man to get the job done.
His hooch.
At this point, they cut to some women in the crowd holding a sign reading, "We want Papa's pump."
What I did love about
Yeah.
Steiner's promo was he calls Kimberly a hooch and then still tries to fuck her.
Of course.
That's what you do.
No!
I mean, they're the ones that are easy.
Opting out of this one.
What in the fuck are you talking about? He insulted her
Yes.
and then tried to sleep with her, Craig.
Yes, I understand.
This doesn't work.
I understand.
Okay.
So we got this match. It was really...
Before that, it wasn't just Steiner doing a promo. Hogan does his promo. This is very important.
So much to say.
This is very important.
Well, it's good for this job.
Hogan cuts his promo on Flair. He says, "I beat your child and Eric Bischoff kissed your wife. I am warning the rest of WCW, everyone is going to be hunted, and as God is my witness, Ric Flair, you are the first one who's going to be hunted and torn down by this pack." This was a great promo. Now, the reason this is important is this fucking company was in shambles, okay?
Clearly.
This is early 1999. It's a fucking disaster. The finger poke of doom, they beat Goldberg. Like, it's just...
This tag team tournament...
off the fucking rails. But in February, Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair have a match. Flair is so goddamn great on the show, and Hogan is such a great heel, that match that they do in February does a better pay-per-view buy rate than the St. Valentine's Day Massacre with Vince McMahon versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in a cage. Are you fucking kidding me? That's how good Hogan and Flair were on this show. Despite all of this bullshit, they were great, and they built up a great feud here.
So the story of the match was they got the heat on Benoit forever. A wise choice.
Oh, man. Benoit chopping Hogan. Hogan beating the shit out of Benoit. He's suplexing him. He's giving back suplexes.
I'm watching this.
Working his ass off.
Early on, all I can think is this has to be the only time Benoit and Hogan ever had a match together. And I bet Hogan never got chopped. He did, once. He took one chop from Benoit. Nash took chops from Benoit on this as well. And then he beat him.
I loved it. At the very beginning of this match, Benoit goes right after Hogan.
Yes.
And he gets him in the corner and he gives him this giant chop. And Hogan's like, Jesus Christ. Pokes the guy in the eye. Benoit no-sells it.
Yes.
Starts stomping the shit out of him.
Yep.
And then Flair pulls Hogan out of the ring. Probably to save him.
Yes.
Like, dude, get out of there, buddy. And then once they got the heat, Hogan got his revenge.
Yeah. Great heat segment. Flair was so perfect because everyone in the world wanted to see him tag in. He wanted to tag in.
Like he wanted to tag in.
Oh, yeah.
He's all ready to wrestle.
couple of
He's on the
times-
apron for 15 minutes.
A couple of times, the referee physically had to restrain him from getting in the ring.
Yep.
As we've said many times, Chris Benoit was very good at his job. It was on display here. Eventually, Flair gets this hot... Hogan misses the leg drop, and then Benoit rolls over and tags in Flair. Everyone goes crazy. Breaks down to a six-way, and then here is Bischoff at ringside doing his job selling merchandise. He passes Nash a foam finger with a 2x4 inside, and Nash breaks the 2x4 over Flair for the DQ.
Gotta say something about Benoit. It's maybe a little uncomfortable, everybody, but I have to mention this because Filthy and I have been watching all of the Royal Rumbles, and we have been watching all of the Nitros.
Obviously.
So we've been watching all of the Benoit matches from the 90s, and then I think you watched one of the Royal Rumbles
We
with
watched the
Benoit.
Royal Rumble where he won.
Okay, so remember when we first started watching Nitro, and Benoit made his first appearance, and it was like, man, I have to watch Benoit matches again. And like for some reason, like we could do it without a problem. We could separate it, right?
Yeah.
I fucking watched those Royal Rumbles with Benoit in like 2005, 2006. It is exceedingly uncomfortable. Like, it's way more uncomfortable than watching him in the 90s. And like, it feels to me, and I guess as we keep watching, and we'll watch the Raws too, and eventually he goes to WWE, and then he's there for X number of years before the deal. It seems to me like, at this point, he was in his right mind. But when I watch these mid-2000 shows, like the Royal Rumble, this guy does not look like he's in his right mind. I don't know what it is.
Well, it's also it's a lot closer to the
It is, but it's
tragedy,
like,
you know?
God, I watched those Rumbles in 2005, 2006, 2007, and it's like, I can't watch this guy. But here he seems like, just like a wrestler.
The other part of it, I think, is at this point, he is a bit player. He's very good at what he's doing, but the story's not about him.
Kind of.
He's a side. He's a side. I don't say sideshow character, but he's a smaller character. And we'll see in WCW. He does get to a main event status. Maybe it'll be. I bet it'll be more uncomfortable then. We had to actually.
We'll see.
Deal with him.
We'll see.
Anyway, so it's a DQ. Bischoff pulls out clippers, goes up to Flair's hair. The entire locker room empties. Everyone runs out. So they've been around the whole show to this point. There's a huge battle royal. The NWO tries to flee, but Goldberg is waiting at the top of the ramp to kill them all. He goes through them one by one, and the show goes off the air. That was a very good show when all things were said and done.
Especially after the first 45 minutes when it was horrible.
That's true.
It was like a good... And I guess we got the show coming up where there's like the entire first hour no wrestling.
This felt like it.
Can you imagine? An hour!
Well, to tell you the truth, we're about to review an episode of Raw that had little, if any, good wrestling.
It didn't matter. It had wrestling. There was a better balance.
But the non-wrestling segments were awesome.
45 minutes with 45 segments, and one of them was a 3-minute match with Al Green.
But the
That's
point is,
totally different from Raw.
those 45 segments are awful. Raw's non-wrestling segments are great.
Well, yeah, for the most part.
Well, that reminds me, Vinny, don't watch last night's Raw.
That wasn't that bad.
Raw 25?
He might like the nostalgia.
No, he's going to hate it.
I just watched I saw pictures of the Balor Club stuff. That's all I cared about. Brian, don't even start the music. There's not enough time to waste. The finishes on this show were clean pin. I told you not to start the music.
Don't kill my gimmick, Vinny.
Oh, it's your gimmick now.
Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? Hell yeah.
He's took ownership.
It's popular, therefore it's his gimmick.
Sure.
Okay. Brian, can you cue my music, please?
It's been up for a while.
Finishes on this show were clean pin, double DQ in a ladder match, clean pin, pin after bell shot, and DQ due to 2x4 attack. That's it.
DQ via 2x4 attack.
Yeah.
Hey, at least it played to the storyline of the show.
6 matches in 3 hours.